No, they don't have any of that stuff. We're just trying to find a place for you to land safely.
Yeah, not quite ready to bring it down just yet, but holy smokes, I gotta stop looking at the fuel because it's going down quick.
Okay, Rich, if you could you start a left-hand turn, and we'll take you down to the southeast, please.
This is probably like jail time for life, huh? I mean, I would hope it is for a guy like me.
Well, Rich, we're not going to worry or think about that, but could you start a left-hand turn, please?
Hey, you think if I land this successfully, Alaska will give me a job as a pilot?
I think they would give you a job of doing anything if you could pull this off.
Yeah, right. Nah, I'm a white guy.
If you wanted to land, probably the best bet is that runway just ahead and to your left. Again, that's McCord Field. If you wanted to try, that might be the best way to set up and see if you can land there. Or just like the pilot suggests, another option would be over Puget Sound into the water.
Dang, did you talk to McCord yet? Because I don't think I'd be happy with you telling me I could land like that, because I could mess some stuff up.
Well, Rich, I already talked to him, and just like me, what we want to see is you not get hurt or anybody else get hurt. So like I said, if you want to try to land, that's probably the best place to go.
Hey, I want the coordinates of that orca with the mama orca with the baby. I want to go see that guy.
He sounds like he's loaded. That's the thing. I mean, I'm sure it's a mental break, but it's like a drunk driving pilot. I mean, it's something worse.
Yeah, basically.
He's so happy.
Yeah, but he goes in and out of different states, and in some of the, I'm not even entirely sure people can hear me or us in the beginning of this. But he's bouncing in and out of these states, and at some parts which we didn't hear, which they may have edited out. He apparently at some point sounded really frustrated and anxious and all these different things. But some of the highlights of that is he's like, they're talking in airlineese, and he's like, yeah, that's all mumbo jumbo. I have no idea what all that means. I wouldn't know how to punch it in. He talks about flying this aircraft, learning from simulation games, but no idea how to land it. And he's like, yeah, I'm not quite ready to bring it down just yet, but holy smokes, I've got to stop looking at the fuel because it's going down quick. It's just an amazing thing, but
well, it's funny because we sort of talked about all this time. It was like, there's a time in your life where you have to maintain your professionalism. I mean, that's what these guys are paid for, right?
Yeah.
It's like, all right, okay there, Richard. If you could just steer that to the left and bring it over and crash into the water would be great for everybody, because basically you're driving a giant bomb right now, full of gasoline. So do us a favor, find an open field and just crash it if you could. I mean, but he's being so he's being very, very professional in a very difficult situation. So if anybody's getting a raise, I suppose it's the air traffic guy.
Yeah, I mean, I just thought that was a amazing thing, and then I didn't hear anything about it. It really, I couldn't figure out if that was my timeline or if it was more people weren't trying to report on it. But I would imagine it's all over everything, ABC, NBC, but I don't watch any of that stuff, Fox, anything. So anyway, that's just my little human interest thing. And the way he was talking about, hey, maybe the higher ups will start to pay attention to their employees. And he was obviously under mental illness, and he was talking about these are his words. He's like, I'm obviously not all right in the head, but I didn't realize that until now. I mean, and then many things we didn't hear, him being anxious and everything else, which they cut out, and it was, to me, it was amazing if you just hear the whole audio, and it really comments on some of the things we discussed prior, which we were talking about, depression and mental illness and the state of healthcare in the United States, and there's no real integrated mechanism to prevent these types of things from happening outside of security. And you talked about what happens if you talk about you want to hurt yourself. They pretty much, you're a criminal. They will lock you up and everything else, so people keep sort of these societal pressures inside. And so to me, this is like an extreme example, or yet another example of all these things we talked about and what it could actually result into, And I just think about all these other people who are also quietly suffering, but they won't go hijack a plane. They won't go shoot up a school, but they just are grinning and bearing it and just trying to get through the day.
Well, that's actually, it's a good lead-in. At first I was like, all right, where are we going to go with this? But it's a good lead-in to what we said we were going to discuss on this show, was the deplatforming of AlexJones. And, it's kind of interesting because we briefly discussed AlexJones for some reason, and you just asked me what I thought about him, and we jumped off, because we always jump off to another direction, right? So you asked me about AlexJones, and I just said, I think he's dangerous. That's all I said. We didn't go into anything long. Now, the reason why I think AlexJones is dangerous, and we're going to go deep into AlexJones right now, and Jimmy Dore and Rogan, because they had a whole hour. Rogan brought Dore on to discuss AlexJones, and Jimmy Dore doesn't even know who he knows who he is, but he's not on his radar. He doesn't follow him. But my problem with AlexJones is, and why I said he was dangerous is because, again, and I got to be careful with my words here, but he speaks to his minions, right? And a lot of these people are not mentally stable. So they're going to take what he says and they're going to run with it. And that's why it's dangerous. Now, if you let me continue, when I watched Dore and Rogan, they discussed AlexJones, and I did text you and you're like, save it. None of them seemed to understand the situation. Like, none of them seemed to grasp what was going on. Why was AlexJones deplatformed? Why was he taken off Spotify and Apple, basically YouTube, I think, basically all three major ones. Again, we're going to go there. But the reason why, and again, people are not going to understand that, is because he called Sandy Hook, like you said, a fake false flag event, and that the family members who lost their kids were actors. You're really ruining my shot, Lacey. So the reason why I have to be clear about why Rogan and Dore were so far off with their broadcast is what happened with what I don't want to blame AlexJones, but he's a big part of this, is that he started this. It was a false flag. These family members who lost these kids. Now, again, if you go and investigate Sandy Hook, and you look at these kids, this guy shot with like a high-powered rifle in the face. Just imagine first graders being shot close range with a high-powered semi-automatic gun. Because I'm not a gun person, so I have to be. I don't want to piss off the gun people by not saying exactly what it was. So what happened with AlexJones saying this? His minions started to attack these people, would contact him through Facebook, email, etc. They would start to build websites, claiming that this was a false flag. And they would start to use images of the children, saying that this person is not real, this person is not. Actually putting up the victim's picture of a first grader and saying, this kid's not dead, this kid's an actor, this is a stage event. So this one father, which is the most important part of the story that I'm telling to you, that this is a New York Times article. was once so there's a divorced couple. They're up there in Sandy Hook, Connecticut, is where this took place. Divorced couple have a kid. The father is sort of a conspiracy nut himself and listens. He likes to listen to AlexJones. And, he said, I used to listen to AlexJones, and I have to be honest. He's like, but now AlexJones is putting this stuff out there. This is fake. People are going after me, and they're going after the memory of my son. Basically, this guy's son is being attacked every day now. So his son got attacked and shot, and then every day he has to wake up to find out that his son is being attacked again. So you have to understand, these people are like, no, I can't let that happen. It happened once, for real. I'm not going to let it happen every day on the internet. So what he started to do is sue anybody who used the image of his son. He would first contact them, contact their website, whoever put it up, and said, look, I'm going to send you a cease and desist letter. After that, I'm going to sue you for content. Don't put my son's image up on your site, or we're going to court. I'm going to sue you. And then this is what he does every day when he wakes up. He scours the internet to find pictures of his dead son that they're using. And that's why he's dangerous. And that's why he's bad. And that's why he was deplatformed. Now, Joe and Dor sit there and get caught up again with the term, and this is why it all gets so crazy, the term hate speech. They go off in the direction of, well, this hate speech, this is getting out of control, and then there's no nuance to the conversation. We just got to get rid of hate speech. You can't call it hate speech, but the bottom line is you got to decide when you're going to take action. So if I'm Apple, right, and I'm YouTube, and I'm Spotify, and I have these families contacting me, and maybe they've created a movement afoot and said, look, you can't play this guy's pod. Now, half the people we're probably talking to right now don't even know who the background shot is of a crazy person. Half the people that we're talking to probably don't even know who AlexJones is. They might not even know who Rogan is or Dor. But regardless of that, someone is out there saying that the Sandy Hook event was a fake event, and these were actors, and the kids were actors, and it never happened, and they're coming to take your guns, and So when you're putting up that kind of false information and you're affecting the victims of already a horrific incident, that's the nuance. So both Dor and Rogan sat down to do a YouTube podcast, and both didn't understand and I get it from Rogan has kids, so he can relate to like, hey, you can't do that. I got kids. That's as far as it goes in his head, right? Hey, I got kids. You can't be saying that about kids, And Dor was just like, I don't even follow AlexJones. I don't even know. I don't even know what he's doing. So that's the story of. What amazes me about our show is that, again, we got lucky. I happened to listen to the podcast. It happened to be a big story for like the last 2 weeks, him being deplatformed. And I think a lot of people either not knowing or not caring. I sent you that clip. I've been sending you stuff now randomly, but and that clip from Facebook about what an intellectual is. And the guy had a great speech, right? And the speech was, an intellectual is someone who takes the time, who needs to know more. It's not the person who's scholarly. It's not the person who went to college. It's not the person who's a doctor or a lawyer. It's the person who's always continuing to need to know. It's the people who don't want to know or don't need to know. You have to have the want to go and need to know why certain things are happening. So,
well, I mean, on that, that's really sort of the foundation of what's sort of wrong in what we would commonly call modern political discourse, whatever. There's these two really general camps of people who, everybody starts with a base opinion or a foundation of whatever their history, their past, their education, or lack thereof, wherever they are. But there's two different camps of people who start with that information. There are some who, when they get new information, their base, their foundation evolves. They keep processing, and they keep learning, and they keep being, as I understand what you're saying, sort of true intellectuals. But then there are others who have really an on and off switch, and no matter what sort of new information they get, they're swatting it away, just to if it disagrees with whatever their foundation is, they're just using whatever they got to push it away, or just collecting bits that agree with them. And no new information, no new knowledge will supplant that. And you and I are different because, not just us, obviously, but we talked about sort of like even our own nonsense, like the quantum theory from our last stream. And we were like, a lot of this stuff with The Secret and number 11, all this, it's crazy. But here's some things that I've experienced, which would seem to have some sort of support. I don't know where it comes from. I don't know what it truly means. But we allow it to exist, and we say we don't really know maybe how it works. We have a couple of theories, but what we don't do is go, I don't believe in any of this nonsense, and I'm just going to completely reject it. So we get new information like other intellectuals, many others that we know, and adopt it. But you going back to AlexJones, there are a lot of people in our movement, not just the alt-right. What we got to remember, there are a lot of progressives who, even though their ideologies differ from the alt-right or these uber conservatives like AlexJones, they're deeply embedded in these conspiracies. And it's not out of a desire to believe in them, but because of all of their own personal knowledge about government, and they're always out to get the little guy, and the top 1% are only benefit. So conspiracies have a gateway to a lot of progressives. So you have two camps which fundamentally disagree from an ideological standpoint, and yet they both have a different entry point to these conspiracies. We have a lot of big names, and you know who I'm talking about, who that's all they talk about are conspiracies. So they're not fringe in the sense of people don't know who they are, but they're fringe in the sense that really no one knows who any of these progressives are, or any of these people on the alt-right, unless you're a national figure. And, a lot of popular voices online, etc., they're only known by other fringe progressives and people in that movement. But a lot of big names that people would perceive as big voices in the progressive movement are just constantly talking about false flags and, geoengineering and all of these things, which a lot of people who don't make any noise whatsoever just go and move on quietly, leaving only this void of loud voices saying things that the vast majority of progressives don't believe. I actually think AlexJones is the same way. I would believe that the vast majority of Republicans and conservatives and fringe and alt-right don't believe in any of his nonsense, but he has the bigger voice, or he has a big voice with these fringe movements, and so it becomes an issue of what do you do, and then they get into the topics about free speech, etc.
Well, I thought it was really interesting, and again, they don't cover this, and you may have to check this, but again, we can go back and check it, but I don't know if we can find that this is true, what I'm about to state, but I'm pretty sure it's true. So when AlexJones was in his custody battle with his ex-wife, he admitted that his show is for entertainment purposes only. So again, when you look at somebody like an AlexJones, and they pull that card, they pull the pro wrestling card. To me, all his credibility goes out the window, right? He's playing the system. He's playing his viewers. He knows what he does is a form of entertainment. That's why he's taken this strange persona, and you watch it. If you watch him, it's actually very funny. Like, if you would just sit down and watch an episode, like, I don't have any time or interest, but if I sat and watched AlexJones, I guarantee you, at some point I would burst out laughing.
Well, it's similar to Colbert, right? How he plays this character, but he plays it knowingly, not only to, but I should preface that, because better than I, a lot of people who aren't familiar with that sort of Daily Show satire and irony believed, and probably still believe, but probably less so because he now has this talk show where he no longer plays that character. But they thought he was a real person. They thought Colbert was that character. Both people on the left and on the right. So it wasn't a matter of, oh, you idiot Republicans. It was his presentation never tried to tell the audience, hey, I know you're smart, so I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt. You realize I'm playing a character. But it wasn't until he started branching out and interviewing and doing all these other things, people realized he was acting. But he had to tell people, I'm playing a character. And it literally shocked people. But just briefly, going to your point, here's an article from Time which talks about President Trump's favorite conspiracy theorist is just playing a character. His lawyer says. This is back of April last year, and it just says InfoWars AlexJones Twitter bio declares that he is fighting for freedom and liberty on the front lines of truth journalism. Despite his penchant for pushing baseless conspiracy theories like Pizzagate and the idea that the Sandy Hook school shooting was a hoax, which I will again highlight that the many progressives support the same Pizzagate and Sandy Hook as a hoax theories. So it's a weakness, a flaw of extremists on both the left and the right, or even just people who are prone to believe.
And I believe that the guy who shot up Comet Ping Pong, I think that's what he went in with a gun, and shot up the actual pizza place Comet, said he was inspired by AlexJones. Again, we'd have to, I believe allegedly, I mean, we'd have to check that. But I believe the guy who went in and shot a shotgun in Comet Ping Pong said, I was inspired by AlexJones. So, anyway, the day that we discussed AlexJones, I just said he was dangerous. I didn't get into it. I don't know why, because we are always bouncing from topic to topic. But the reason why he's dangerous, and we're going full circle on this, is because many people out there do suffer from mental illness, and when they're hammered with this kind of, and it's intense propaganda. Again, if you don't know AlexJones, it's intense. I don't know how. Again, I don't know AlexJones' how many radio stations he broadcast. I don't know his reach. But again, if he's talking to people with mental illness and they hear this, it's a different world where anytime I want, I can go and listen to AlexJones and get me fired up to go and do something inappropriate, right? So it's not like I have to wait for a certain time every day and turn them on. Anytime I need AlexJones to sit on my show to go, hey, this Hillary Clinton and this, it is all like, I can't even do AlexJones. I got to do Hulk Hogan instead. Hey, brother. You want to make a difference? You got to get out there and stop this Hillary Clinton.
Ooh, Sandy Hook. Pizzagate, we're gonna mess you up. Yeah,
yeah, brother. But again, so that's why you come around full circle to the guy who flies the plane, who has mental problems, and you go back to the gun issue with Sandy Hook and Adam Lanza. It does a lot of it would help if there was Medicare for all, and people had a better access. I'm not obviously that's not the solution because. Look, man, I suffer from all sorts of weird anxiety. It might be hard for people to actually go and talk to a doctor or take the medication or whatever it is. It's not the end-all, be-all, but it's the beginning. Well, it's like, hey, at least everybody has a shot at it,
Well, I mean, something I read a couple days ago, and it's actually in the side of this.
He's a performance artist. That's a
good
clip.
Yeah, he is a performance artist.
I love it. That's so. I mean, come on. That is such a cop out by this. I mean, that should completely delegitimize him, right? That story alone should have ruined his career. Well, it just doesn't work like that in America. There's just.
Well, I mean, let me tell you about this other related story because all of our topics they do interlink only because life interlinks.
I'm pretty sure AlexJones hates performance artists.
Yeah, right. Yeah. No, but I would be curious about his past and to see if he's sort of like a
my God, yeah, definitely like an
failed actor or something like that,
or failed radio DJ.
Yeah.
Like, because that's how Rush Limbaugh got started. Rush Limbaugh, I think, was like a failed DJ and then a radio guy.
Or even someone who started with like immense talent and immense creativity and just got beaten down by life.
That's really interesting. Yeah, I'd love to know his backstory.
Because you look at this, I mean, even in the article that we were on, this touches close to home here.
You got to pull up his Wikipedia page. Now you got me all like jacked up, juiced up.
But his wife, obviously, his ex-wife, who's obviously in a battle, so you can take this with as much, of a grain of salt as you would like, but she says he's not a stable person. His fiery rants prove he's not a fit parent. But listen to this. She says he broadcasts from home. The children are there.
I know what you're going to say. Yeah, no,
watching him.
I know what you're going to say. So repeat it again. I didn't interrupt you.
No, that was it.
Yeah, the children are home, and he's flipping out. Like, I mean, I'm only upsetting my dog. My child is.
So I mean, I wonder which came first, the chicken or the egg, the marriage and this sort of.
Got to pull up Wikipedia because I'm like mad at myself because normally I would do what you do, which is due diligence and do the background check and go, oh, okay, let's figure this guy out.
Yeah.
Let's deconstruct this guy. Let's figure out how he went from here to here. And like you said, there's got to be some sort of background where it just wasn't working for him. And then he figured out, oh, here it is. Here's the thing. Here's the niche I found. And you bring up these progressive voices, and nobody. I mean, you want to think nobody cares about AlexJones that we're talking about now. Most people don't know any of the progressive voices that we're talking about. Their audiences are also minuscule, as is ours. Crazy progressive voices out there. But yeah, that's funny. It's just kind of funny. But I know what you're talking about. There's many people.
Well, it's not new either. I mean, it's not new. People they don't forget. But you have people like Glenn Beck, and it's the same sort of thing. And you can even go back in the day to remember Morton Downey Jr. and sort of the fighting in the studios and all these different fringe elements which were so entertaining. Leading up to a Trump character, but Glenn Beck was one of my family. As I've stated before, uber conservative, religious, Fox News watching Republicans, all that sort of stuff. And my brother, at some point, was fixated by Glenn Beck, and sort of the underlying thing you have to keep in mind is that Glenn Beck came out, so to speak, and said, look, I realize the damage that I did to rile people up with conspiracy theories. This is how old now? 10 years old? I don't know. But he was the first. He was a gigantic name on Fox. He helped rein in the era of Fox News. Fox News, as we know it today, is largely responsible because of what Glenn Beck did. And he since has appeared on many different shows lamenting his role in this. Lamenting how he would rile people up to conspiracy theories, really pro-nationalist, ultra, patriotic language. And it was hypnotic. And my brother, my family even fell under this. And they were like, check this person out. And I remember, and I'm not I have no need to I could care less. My real reaction to this Glenn Beck character, I didn't know who he was. I was like, this guy sees something's off.
Yeah.
But right away, but I realized that it wasn't right away to other people, not because I'm smarter or more brilliant. He has a mesmerizing tone, and I got chills down my spine that I go, this person can rile people up. He's now, conservatives hate him now. He's sort of like, oh, it's all a joke. We're all too extremists. But this is AlexJones and many other people have picked up the mantle. I'm on the AlexJones site now.
Well, I went to his early life, and he's a college dropout. Then, not that matters. He was in community college dropout. Then he started doing a public access television program. Then he gets on the radio, and then he got on the radio real early. So he went from public access. Someone saw an ability, and he went from there. This is his early. I'm trying to see. I'd love to know where he dropped out. It doesn't give his dates. He's born in 1974. Graduated from high school in 1993. Okay, he graduates high school get this. So he graduates high school in 1993. In 1996, so he's 21. He starts this public access program when he's like right out of high school. And then in 3 years, he switched format to radio, hosting a radio show. He was on the radio at 21 years old.
But
so
what intrigues me about that the most isn't sort of his launching pad into radio and his sort of early days in radio. What always fascinates me is the launching pad for a person's character, the launching pad for someone's ability. The concept of kids scares the hell out of me because they're empty vessels, completely empty vessels. And so garbage in, garbage out. And I hate to put it that way, but that terrifies me the most because one could argue, and I think very eloquently and very intellectually, that AlexJones is a victim of his upbringing, not his parental upbringing, but upbringing in the sense of whatever garbage you put inside your head will come out. So let's look at, before he even touches radio, it says this: Jones was born in 1974. Okay, right there. That is an origin story because that year, those times, that era, the mood in the national, the sort of the national state of mind plays a part in how people feel. Okay, and whether or not they had access to television and all these different things. But the very year of 1974 is something that creates different people. No different than millennials, no different than Generation X, no different than baby boomers. They come from a period which helps to shape their mind. So go beyond that. 1974. He was born in 1974 in Dallas, Texas. Now, Dallas, Texas, everything's big there. Big guns, big this, big that. It doesn't mean that everybody in Dallas is a gun-toting psychopath. Some of my oldest best friends are from Dallas. But it speaks to people who are less critical in thought, more prone to their environment to sort of become whatever that environment says. So then you get beyond 1974, you get beyond Texas, and he says he grew up in a Dallas suburb of Rockwall in the city of Austin, Texas. His father is a dentist. Dentists make good money. He probably got used to that. And his mother is a homemaker. So he saw sort of that traditional background. All these conservative hints that his parents were conservative. Garbage in, garbage out. Okay? In his video podcast, blah, 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 he comes from an Irish, German, Welsh, and English background. Very... did he have access to different populations? Did he meet different people of different faiths, of different races, of different, what did he see? And then he goes, and partially Native American descent, right? It says he was a lineman on his high school's football team. That's a character trait. People who are on the football team develop certain characteristics than people who are not on the football team. People who are in chess club develop socially differently than people who are on football teams, unless you sort of break out of those stereotypical forces of us against them. I mean, this is all very important. He graduated from Anderson High School in 1993 as a teenager. He read conservative journalist and conspiracy theorist Gary Allen's anti-Semitic book, None Dare Call It Conspiracy. Okay, which had a profound influence on him and which he calls the easiest to read primer on the New World Order. After high school, Jones briefly attended Austin Community College but dropped out. So this is...
He should have read The Secret. See, he picked up the wrong book.
Well, when you see my point, then sort of the negative influences, and at what happens when a teenager reads anything? Does he go, oh, F this? Or does he become influenced?
He lives in the Midwest as well. He's living in Texas, but I think it's interesting to jump ahead because he's on this radio station, right, at a young age. He gets fired because he refuses to expand, to broaden his topics, and they were having trouble selling it to advertisers. And then that's 1999. He gets fired, right? He began broadcasting his show by internet connection from his home in the early 2000s. That's 99, 2000. By 2001, his show was syndicated on approximately 100 stations.
Yeah,
that's unreal. Could we? So here's what I would say to you, because I always try to look at it from a different angle. So this guy comes along at the perfect time, right? Normally, he gets fired from this radio station. His career is over. He's at the job going, let me tell you something else about this. He's working at the plasterboard building factory, or he's over at the 7-Eleven. He's somewhere being crazy, right?
Yeah.
But he goes home. He hooks up his internet. He starts to build the show again, and boom, he's syndicated on over 100 radio stations. I'm like, I sound like I'm drunk. Oh, and that's crazy. So the world changed. The technology, and again, has allowed a lot of this craziness to spread.
Yeah.
And it doesn't go away. It's housed. Anybody can keep all of Alex Jones's crazy podcasts and play them over and over again. So if someone wants to play the Sandy Hook episode that they get off on, that they build their website to harass somebody's father over their dead son who got shot.
Well, Joe Rogan has, like you mentioned, he is. I didn't listen to the podcast, but
right.
The sort of overarching summary, as I believe, please check it out yourself and form your own opinions, because I haven't listened to it, is that he's sort of defending Joe Rogan and on a freedom.
You mean Joe Rogan is defending Alex Jones?
Yeah,
you're saying.
yeah. From the freedom of speech standpoint.
Right. They got caught up in the hate speech. They were getting in that area. I mean, Joe tries to come off as understanding and like, I get it, but again, they go right back to hate speech and affecting, they didn't understand the backstory. They didn't realize, again, they didn't focus on the minions. They don't focus, and when I say minions, maybe that's a terrible word. They didn't focus on the people who are heavily influenced and go out and take action. And you can't just be making up shit and putting it out there. And they were saying from their side, well, adjudication, sue him. Okay, fine. But if I'm Apple and I'm Spotify and I have a business model, sorry, I can't have you doing that. I can't. I have a conscience as well. I have empathy. I have compassion. If I see something and this is going on, I, as a business person who's running this, have to go, look, I can't have Alex Jones saying this shit on my platform.
See something, say something.
No. Stop it. Stop something. Yeah. So that's the thing. But if you want to jump ahead, or if you want to stay on this topic, you went from Glenn Beck, you would bring us to BenShapiro.
Well, I do want to say something 30 seconds before you
Minions
go in. That is it. One has to keep in mind the bigger picture here. Because if you're talking about defending defending Alex Jones from a freedom of speech, that does have very, idealistic merits. But we don't. But we do not live in a vacuum, and that's what people. It goes back to your conversation about the Constitution being a fixed document versus a living document. We do not live in a social vacuum, and we cannot understate sort of the changing of the tides here, where you look at the Facebook Senate hearings and you have Mark Zuckerberg testifying on privacy and data and people having access to this. We're living in a world now where prior, the rise of Alex Jones and Glenn Beck and all these people was predicated on no one gives a shit as long as they're making money. Because the acts that Facebook has done just in the last few weeks and months, really forces them to lose money, because it gives people more control to remove themselves from data collection and ads. That's their base monetary income. That's their whole money making scheme. And so, but the sort of the changing of the social guard is saying we don't care about that anymore. And so you need to lose money in order for us to feel safer. When you talk about AlexJones, freedom of speech is a very idealistic viewpoint, but at the same time, the national discourse is now going, look, Facebook created so many wacky people during the election and angered people. Normal people became sadder, more depressed, more vulnerable to attack people, more vulnerable to run people over with their cars, and all these things, and fake news impacting election results and all these things. These are all the arguments. And so now people are going, yeah, we get the intellectual argument about freedom of speech, but this is actually having measurable scientific, social consequences that we really have to stop ignoring. That's where AlexJones comes in, and his impact on people who are demonstrating their vulnerability, this sort of social illness of depression and sadness and everything else. They're starting to go, there is a greater good. There is a more social good. Even pornography is under that, or was under that sort of, that thing saying, yeah, we ban it because I don't like it, but it does still provide a legal definition of social good, therefore allow it. So we're getting into this battle between these intellectual purists and say, freedom of press, Constitution is fixed. And people going, no, we have to change these documents with the times, and we have to change sort of our outlook on how harmful speech can be on people's actual physical lives.
And because of technology and the way you can organize and the way that the information can spread. And just to make a joke, I find it very interesting when two white guys sit down and discuss what hate speech is. Two white, non-Jewish, non-black, non-minority, talk about, oh, wait, let's be careful with this hate speech. Well, okay. Yeah. Okay, white guy. Right. Okay, you couldn't be more white, couldn't be less a minority, but okay, well, we won't, God forbid we talk about hate speech. Again, it speaks of two white guys who are older who don't get it, that the power of technology, the power of weapons, be these guns, you do have to modify laws to, oh my God, and you made a great point, and you really fucking saved the day as usual. The other thing I would tell you, always do. I would tell you, if you're confused about the gun issue again and AlexJones and all that, see a Frontline episode called Gunned Down. It will take you again through the history of gun rights. And when Sandy Hook occurred, these families obviously very distraught. I mean, can you imagine? Your kid, your first grader goes to school, gets shot up. They wanted to do something. So they came and they had brought it together, and they got lawyers, and they were going to write laws, and they were going to do things. They bring this information to the lawyers, and the lawyers look at it and go, none of this is going to happen. Like, you're not going to get capacity. You're not going to get an assault rifle ban. There's no way. You're not going to get magazine capacity. There's no way. Maybe we can go for gun loopholes at gun shows and background checks. And when they brought it to the Senate, after trying to bring Joe Manchin in from Virginia, I believe, still got voted down. After, I don't know how many first graders got shot, they still wouldn't change simple background checks and gun loopholes in gun shows. So it was just showing the power of the NRA, and that's why these families are so upset and still upset today. They did make some ground in Connecticut. They eventually decided to just do it on the local level rather than trying to do it on the federal level. I think they made more progress in Connecticut. But again, if you want to understand why these families are angry, their first grader got shot in the face, and some guys, and then they're trying to make changes, getting shut down, and they're stunned they're stunned that their kid got shot. Then they're stunned that nobody would take action. Then they got this guy telling everybody in the world that it was a fake event. So that's where the aggressiveness towards Alex, I'm sure, comes from. They're trying to do something every day to protect the memory of their child and to protect that child, and to, again, whatever family member would do when something like this would happen is, okay, how do I continue? How do I go on with my life after this? And that's how some people do it. They say, all right, I'm going to wake up every day. I'm going to fight for my child. I wasn't able to protect him, but I'm going to wake up every day and protect him. Who doesn't understand that? Well, what was the sick part is that you had a Congress that wouldn't change background check laws, and loopholes, and nobody cared in America. Nobody reacted. There was no marches. There was no nothing. Nothing happened. It's the same old thing. So, I still believe that the darker side, the Charlottesville riot side, is that side still wins out. I'm on the other side.
And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but today or yesterday is the actual anniversary of Charlottesville, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. Charlottesville was yesterday.
Yeah.
So that's when somebody went too far and drove a car into protesters. Somebody who wasn't mentally stable went too far with the rhetoric and decided to drive his car. I mean, for what? I mean, what are you thinking when you do something like that? You'd love to interview him. Like, what? Where did you think? How do you think that was going to help anything?
This is a bit of
mentally disturbed.
Well, yeah, but here's the thing. This person was probably mentally disturbed for perhaps his entire life, right? But think about this. Remove the fervor of the angst of these political conversations and these furthering of voices of such as AlexJones and the environment and everything else, and you make a very strong, or you could make a very strong argument in case that these people are victims of this sort of social illness. Would they have gotten into a car and driven and done these crazy things? I mean, they were mentally ill probably their entire life and got increasingly worse at the very least. But why did this incident happen? Would it not be for this agitated AlexJones type culture and environment and culture that we're in? Would that mental illness have evidenced itself in that manner? I would say almost. Of course not. I don't see. Were it not for the culture being the way it is now, that because that's not what happens. I mean, but if I'm raised by radical, Islamic extremists, my mental illness would not probably evidence itself in the exact same way. It might evidence itself me getting on a plane, right? It might evidence itself with me taking a knife and cutting someone's head off. Your culture, your society plays a part in how one's extremes reveal themselves. And so I think the culture is as much to blame, which includes things that are as minor as one would say as elevated speech like AlexJones.
So I would agree with that, and again, this is not related, and we'll talk about it on a different day. But you bring up the Muslim world, and you are leaning. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but just the fact that you may be indoctrinated in a certain way of thinking.
Absolutely.
In that world, in the Middle East, and so I advise you to watch also another frontline documentary called "Bitter Rivals: Iran and Saudi Arabia." Unbelievable, and it's more about the involvement. It's about their rift, but more about how America has completely fucked with that area and is completely, partly responsible for much of the chaos that has gone on there. Because that that region very well could have modernized, but because we wanted resources, we kept going in there and fucking with it and creating vacuums. It's too long for me to. It'll be for another day where you'd have to go and watch this. But again, unbelievable.
I mean, all I'm saying is it's really basic. I mean, there's no magical things. Just don't magically happen. Things have origin stories. People get created, people's beliefs and access to information. These are all sometimes it's lack of access to information. Flying a plane over a population and just dropping pamphlets out, right? Which was a military tactic saying, look, there's other stuff going on in the world that you might want to not support your current regime. So these things are what I came from a very supportive sort of religious background, and so I can follow that path or I can resist that path, but it's all part of my origin story, information and things I've seen. I also traveled the world as a military brat. I saw different countries and different people and different ways of life. So that information has informed me that I got as a kid to my great benefit. But what happens if you don't have access to these sorts of experiences that I would deem positive? And that's all what I think that's my big takeaway from what you're saying is that there are reasons that things happen and reasons that people do things. It's not magic. And I'm only sort of speaking on that for every horrible boogeyman that we come up with and for every, great creature of positivity, there's a reason why they are. They're not just rolling the dice and going, I want to be a good person today. There's causal impacts, and I think we got to give people more access to positive things rather than negative, and that goes to why these tech companies, for whatever real reason they're doing it, that's sort of the good impetus. We have to start giving people positive things that they can latch on to, because we're increasingly demonstrating how vulnerable and weak and sad and emotionally, pliable in the face of really negative impacts.
Because I wouldn't even know where to go in that direction. One of the things I would say to you is, what we're talking about in the information on AlexJones is someone needs to have a little place where someone can go, I know you're into AlexJones, go check out this 1 hour, documentary, so you can maybe get, because I can't sit here and tell you why you shouldn't probably be following him. But, look, because someone needs to go over how we got here with AlexJones and all the things that we just talked about. And that's why I said to you, I contacted you, I said, we got to do the show. I just watched Dore and Rogan, and they completely didn't handle this topic right. So the two guys that, and I always want to say this, the two guys that I admire the most, probably in what we want to do, what we're trying to do, are Dore and Rogan. Those are my guys that I'm like, wow, if we could do it like that. But when they completely fail at an attempt to understand what's going on with AlexJones, I'm like, that's why we're doing the show, Curtis. We got to do it. And you're like, all right, we'll do it. So I would say to you, I wish there was like an hour or 3 hour documentary on what's going on with AlexJones and why it's so terrible, what he's doing, why it's so dangerous, and then go with that. As far as free speech, I understand there's going to be two sides, right? So yeah, the companies want to be positive, and we've often talked together about how we know that the Facebook algorithms shit out and YouTube, demonetizes people. So it's a good bad thing. You almost always know that corporations are going to bastardize whatever goodness is about their technology. Someone's going to buy it out and just fucking destroy it. So that's always, you're running this constant ahead of the wave. How are they going to grab this technology and destroy it so that we can't use it for good? And the last thing I would say to you is the problem is with an AlexJones, and or Glenn Beck or a BenShapiro is from our side. There is, and I know this has no interest to you because that's not the kind of show you want to do, but I'm saying to you in our movement, there's nobody and we have like Kyle Kaczynski, I guess. We have a couple of like sort of legit guys out there that, you know, at one time were doing good work. Close friends of you were doing good work and had some issues, but there's not enough. I truly believe that, you know, because when I look for something, I end up watching Rogan, which is like sometimes like this episode was so stupid. I spent 3 hours watching a really dumb episode on AlexJones with a guy that I totally admire, which was Jimmy Dore, and Jimmy Dore went over his usual like talking points that he always hammers, and I think that was like at some point Joe Rogan was like, okay, we've been down this road 1,000 times, you know, like.
Well, we can listen to it like a
there's no reason.
Okay.
There's no. I mean, it's up to you. I mean, if you want to, for your, because I'll rip it apart. But again, I was going to say, if you want to go further, where we're going is we have nobody, I believe, in our movement that doesn't. It's more that people don't punch figuratively punch back, punch people in the mouth. It's kind of like the thing, you know. First of all, Trump was on Alex Jones's broadcast during the 2015
campaign. I did recall that after I checked it out. I go, oh yeah, I do remember that, and because I was like, was he on there? And you're right. That
guy, Trump, is no fucking dummy. I don't care what anybody says. He wants to bring. He brought in every fucking. I have to be so careful.
No, he's smart. I mean, you look at some of the old videos on YouTube. He's like on Phil Donahue talking about real estate, and the audience is against him, and Phil Donahue's against him, and you see him turn the crowd around and get applause. He's very shrewd.
But I'm saying, so I was going to say he got every fucking available nut job to get out there and vote for him. So he went to Alex Jones, knows there's. We had a president of the United States who said, I could go out and shoot somebody in the middle of the street and people would still vote for me tomorrow.
Right.
I mean, if that isn't close to it.
Yeah, and it's fairly accurate. It's just,
he's being totally honest.
The mistake was not him saying it, because it's true. The mistake was from sort of his self-interest or even preservation, was that, oops, I didn't intend to speak the truth, right? You know, in his mind, he might have been like, oh yeah, I said that out loud. But it wasn't a mistake from the standpoint of, well, no, that was inaccurate. And that's what people get wrong about Trump. He doesn't say things that he doesn't, believe. He speaks a truth and sometimes regrets saying them with the audience who received it because they took it the wrong way and it might have hurt him. But he again, I was looking at something with him and Phil Donahue, and he was just like, you could see this guy can transform people. But just really briefly, I don't think the big problem is that we don't have somebody sort of on our side. I think the problem is, I really think the big problem is that there are sides. And I don't mean that in a rainbow coalition sort of way. What I mean by that is that regardless of Alex Jones and we have some superhero on our side or whatever, the problem is that these people exist in a vacuum. I don't listen to Alex Jones. I don't listen to what's his face, Ben. I know them, and all these, but it's the fact that that's the problem. The fact that only people already in that fringe here. And so that's where the cancer grows, because you only hear that. So if I take a little bit of Glenn Beck, okay, who cares? But I never hear anything else. So I get so consumed by that single. Think how dangerous this is. I'm not exaggerating. This is how Hitler rises. I'm not calling Trump Hitler. I'm not calling.
But I always.
What I'm saying is.
But I'm willing to say that as clearly as.
But I'm saying I'm just saying it's not. It's not even about Trump. It's about human nature. The only way a Hitler rises is because it's all you hear, and it goes sort of into the indoctrination as a child. You're a child of politics, or you're a child of knowledge. You're a child of not knowing something. If somebody comes into that vacuum and whispers in your ear, just like that book whispered in a teenage AlexJones' ear, that's all that child hears, regardless of your age. You're a child of that, and then you run with it. And so we can have the biggest superhero on our side, but we have to remember that very clear point. The people already on your side are only hearing that superhero and getting even more further indoctrinated, if you will.
Hey, you're breaking up a little bit over there. I don't know what you're doing.
By those voices.
You're breaking up. You're back.
That's probably your connection, though.
How dare you?
Yeah.
Well, it's a good time to break you up. I don't know. Maybe it's my headset. I don't know. But my problem is, I know you have this stance, but again, these people do move people, and we need to have as many people on our, whatever you call our side, because that's when we agree to disagree, and that's the beauty of that we disagree on some of this stuff. You can't be agreeing all the time. I really believe we need more people punching back. I believe Dorr said it on Rogan's show.
Well, I don't disagree with that at all.
Dorr said it on Rogan's show.
Enough,
I'm like the only guy doing what I do. Mm-hmm. Basically what he said. I'm the only guy doing what I do. He goes, I'm a jack-off comedian doing the right thing. I'm doing journalist's job. I'm doing, what you consider what the left should be doing. I'm doing it. Nobody else is not doing it. Bill Maher's not doing it. The regular press isn't doing it. He's like, there's a couple, and then there's me. And he's like, but I'm all right. I'm fine with that. I'm good with that. And that's true. And yet, this topic, he couldn't handle. He couldn't handle this topic. So again, we do need everybody punching back who can punch back. And I've always wanted to do shows like this in order to punch back, figuratively punch back. So when a guy like BenShapiro says what he says, and I know you probably didn't listen to the clip I sent you, somebody needs to punch back. It needs to be a bigger story, or somebody from our side needs to be like, you fucking really
I honestly don't think I got this clip. Did I respond after you sent it to me?
How dare you?
Yeah, I don't remember a clip, and if I ignored it, I wouldn't have done it.
All right, so he did something on his show, and then he put something on Twitter, and you have to watch it, Curtis, in order to because I think it's sexist for sure. I
remember now. I did respond.
You did see it.
Yeah,
you can play it. But
I didn't watch the whole thing. Because what I said was, I can't listen to him after 30 seconds. His tone is so distracting.
Yeah, she's so white. I can't.
Yeah, and he's just so it just reminds me of every geek,
Seriously, I don't mean she's very dumb. Too, she's dumb as a light bulb. She's as dumb as a light bulb in the box. And I challenge her. I challenge her for a debate.
And again, I welcome content. I welcome different voices. I just can't, him specifically, I can't listen to him. He's so jarring and in his manner and everything else.
So let's just be clear. BenShapiro, who's another syndicated guy, like AlexJones, got on and said that I want to get her name right because I assume she's the new target because they're so afraid of her. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is dumb, is stupid, is silly, is ridiculous. I want to debate her. They throw her these softball questions. What's your lipstick? Who did your hair today?
Okay, here it is. Yeah.
I'm about to become unhinged.
BenShapiro challenges. Right, here it is. Let me find it. Challenges. Here we go. Oops, where's the video? Daily Wire. Okay. And since you're such a fan, let's play a little bit.
Ambition unchecked by
the corollary of that is the Democrats, because they are so jazzed up
could move radically to the left. And that means that their future is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Now, yesterday I said that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is not the brightest bulb in the basket. And I stand by that statement because she is not, in fact, the brightest bulb in the basket. She was on Pod Save America yesterday, and she made a series of ridiculous, silly statements. She, again, is considered the future of the Democratic Party because she's an intersectional candidate. She's a person of great intersectional capacity. She's a woman, and she's Latina, and that means that she has valuable things to say, even if she is just saying random stuff all the time that doesn't make any sense. Well, yesterday on Pod Save America, she was asked a series of kiss-ass questions, and she proceeded to immediately blow them sky high because she can't even answer those questions properly. By the way, I've received a lot of emails. Would I debate Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez? I would pay money to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's campaign to debate Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I would pay her money to come on the Sunday special. I would give money to her campaign if it meant that she would actually come on the Sunday special and answer some serious questions from somebody on the other side of the aisle. But there's a reason that she's only existing in the safe space of Pod Save America, where they're just going to ask her questions like, Alexandria, where do you get that lipstick? Alexandria, how do you do your hair in the mornings? Alexandra, can you talk to us about how Republicans are mean and cruel? Yeah, it's really funny. This morning, she tweeted out, because there's a lot of blowback after her various interviews, she tweeted out a bunch of things about how the reason people are coming after her is because they're trying to distract from this burgeoning Republican scandal. There's a Republican representative who's now been arrested for some sort of bank fraud. He's a big early backer of President Trump's. And she says the reason people are coming after me is specifically because they're trying to distract. She says whenever the right is being particularly feisty towards me, the first thing I do is check to see which bad news of theirs they're trying to distract from. Lo and behold, and then she says Representative Chris Collins of New York, Trump's earliest congressional backer, was arrested by the FBI on securities fraud-related charges. Well, no, the reason that we focus on Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is because the media have fallen in love with the lady who won 17,000 votes in a Democratic primary in New York, and we're all supposed to believe that she's the wave of the future. That's why we're paying attention. Also, because it's a lot of fun to pay attention to the dumb stuff she says, because if this is the future of the Democratic Party, the future is stupid.
I can't.
Yeah, the future.
The future is it. So I just can't. I physically can't listen to more of that than 30 seconds. He drives me up the wall.
But it's old school, right? It's the way that they always keep it sexist.
Lipstick and hair, and come on. I mean, it's a cartoon. It's so over the top. It's not. But here's people like you and other people are going to be listening to BenShapiro and listening to other opposing views and that type of thing. But the vast majority aren't listening to him. And it's so, yeah, you can have superheroes on each side, but it's like the Avengers keep collecting people, Black Panther and Captain America, and then they never go fight Thanos. And they're just too busy fighting each other mainly. But there's never a crossing of the guard, really, if you don't sort of go after Thanos. And that's not what really happens. It's just people like BenShapiro, White Panther, talks to other evil people and rile them up and say, look at these Avengers. They suck. And then the Avengers are like, hey, Black Panther, hey, what, Thor? Gosh, White Panther sucks. And so no one actually is having a real discourse, political conversations or anything. And so I don't know if again, I agree with you. We need superheroes, but what I hope, and which we do not have, no matter how many superheroes we have, is that Thor is talking to Thanos, and Thanos is talking to Captain America, and until we sort of cross that river, it's just going to be each superhero group becoming stronger and stronger, and maybe resulting to a fight at best, but never any closer access to.
But here's why I disagree.
F you, man.
Because nobody
disagree with the black man.
Nobody is Bernie Sanders like, who is my superhero. My Facebook page again says, if you come to talk smack about Bernie Sanders, you better be a superhero. You better be a 74-year-old superhero from another planet.
Bernie Sanders.
Bernie Sanders.
Call back.
So call back to somebody. So the problem is I need more Bernie Sanders-like people. But I'm going to go further than this. Let's take it outside the movement. There's too many times in my life where I've seen misbehavior going on, and I always inevitably in every situation tend to be the only one who stands up. And most of the times I probably should have got killed in the situation where I stood up, but you got to have more of that, because I've seen too many places where guys are doing it was all guy behavior. I've never had to stand up to a woman and say you're being wrong. It's always been guys, right? It's always I've got some unbelievable stories, but it just happened recently where I had to say to someone, yo, you're being out of control. You got to stop. I'm telling you right now to stop. Nobody else was telling this guy to stand down. And it took me like 3 minutes to go, I'm telling you, stand down. It's time to stand down. You've talked enough. You got your guys. I got mine. Stand down. So my point is Bernie Sanders. Yes, that's my guy. Then I like her. I don't know her whole story. She's close. She's not, I don't really like the fact that she diverted and wants to talk about, throw Chris Collins out there. I'm not happy with that particularly. I don't think that's Bernie Sanders-like method. I don't think that's the way he plays strategically. I don't think he would have done that in that context, right? He would have been like, can we just talk about the issues? I don't want to talk about Chris Collins. I want to talk about, he would have brought it back. So, that's not, she's not completely.
Bernie Sanders.
And that's why we need more people besides Jimmy Dore, who does a great job, but you need to have more people who are covering all the different things that are occurring. And we don't have enough, and we've never had it. If you look through the course of, every time I
history
say something. No, I'm saying I want to say left and progressive, and I look at you, I'm like, I'm not allowed to say those words because Curtis doesn't like them. But when you look at left broadcasting or progressive broadcasting, I don't have any particular heroes or particular people that I would say, oh, they were great at what they did. Dore is very good. He's very smart. I love his passion. I love his speed. I love what he does. But it's not enough. It's not enough. We don't have enough. When we have a Bernie Sanders and we have a Ocasio-Cortez. I couldn't tell you 10 progressive candidates right now that I'm like, wow, these guys are really good. I'm really in love with them. I couldn't. Now, again, I'm not in the movement, but I couldn't tell you what's going on. And I think that's an issue. You need to have a platform where people can come and see this person, right? So we need a channel where everybody goes, oh, they're going to have so-and-so on tonight. This guy's really good. He's got his act together, and everybody tunes in and watch. I'm watching Rogan and Dore. I'm watching Conor McGregor highlight videos. I have nowhere to go. So that's when I see a guy like BenShapiro, who is obviously, it's a bait. I say, hey, I want to step up. I want to be that guy. Because here's the thing with BenShapiro. If me and Ben were in the same room,
it's a mass debate.
Well, I know, but if I'm in the room with BenShapiro,
a bunch of people jerking each other off, basically, and anyway.
No, but it can't be like that, Curtis, because Ben's got to stand down, and you've got to be in the same room, and you go, Ben, first of all, what you just said was sexist. Second of all, what you said, it's rude. I agree. She's actually a brilliant woman.
In the same room.
You know what, bro? And if you know what, if we were somewhere else, I'd be right in your face. I'd probably have my hands, I'm going to go AlexJones. I'd probably have my hands on your shirt, and you'd probably be against the wall, and I'd probably be saying, apologize. That's where we'd be, Ben. And guess what you'd be doing? You'd be either crying or apologizing. And that's what we don't have in this movement. Is a guy like BenShapiro, he rises up on his little white conservative guys who all talk like this and think they're so damn intelligent and and say brutal.
I can only handle you doing that for 30 seconds.
He's so tight. That guy's so conservative. He certainly is. He definitely has the voice.
I mean, I'm not voice shaming. I'm wondering how a woman would find that attractive because he's like married with kids. But I digress.
Oh,
is he?
We'd have to do the BenShapiro wiki page.
See, he's just off. I'm not a fan of partisan stuff. I'm just talking like I'm being a rude, mean bully.
And I get that.
He's
but I'm just telling.
Yeah, off-putting.
Yeah, and someone has to at least deconstruct that in a popular way and put it out there and come back to him. And I know people do it. The Young Turks do it. They do it
asking her questions
well.
with their lipstick and her hair. Yeah, really? Those are the questions that she gets. Really?
Really? Can I have that clip? Could you send me that clip where they ask about the lipstick and the hair?
Right.
Or is that in your little conservative Pornhub world? You fucking little.
Well, it's true. I think he's sort of talking to sort of a hidden, embedded attraction to her. She's attractive, intelligent. He said that earlier. I think he says he made reference to that earlier. I didn't watch his whole thing, but would I date Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, which I'm sure date means another word, in his world. And he said date. I know what that means. Yeah.
And all these other comics in my world. And Joe Rogan had BenShapiro on his show and never called him out. Joe ties the line way too close to what I feel is acceptable. And he's like one of the most popular guys. He's driving so many independents to the right side. He always brings over these really not cool. I always say people are really, really brave all the time. But if you were really in front of a UFC fighter and you found out right away he was a UFC fighter, you would stand the fuck. You would know, I better shut my mouth or I'm losing a lot of teeth. I'm going to have an arm broken. Something horrible is going to happen to me. So again, a lot of guys very brave, and it just drives me crazy when people allow them to be brave. It's because it's dangerous, it's rude, it's uncalled for, and you at least have to have a rebuttal. Someone has to do it. And I'm not into the Young Turks. Those guys, I don't know, there's something.
Well, Roseanne just tweeted that BenShapiro is what happens if the Jewish Brotherhood and a planet of rats had a baby. It's a true story.
Now when did she get funny again? That's very accurate.
Satire alert! Satire alert!
She probably shouldn't put planet in there only because she's damaging herself again.
Yeah,
and of course.
Well, her defense was
he's like a little white rat. He's a little rat. Someone needs to grab that tail. You know what? That's offensive to rats. I apologize.
That's a classic Jewish slur. So that's if we had a sitcom, we would be removed from our own show, and they would call this the Progressives. That's my only.
I can't believe like any woman would let that guy get away with what he just said. I can't believe conservative women vote for Trump. I can't believe conservative women don't lean sometimes and go, wow, our party is really effed up. We really don't take care of people at all.
Of course they voted for Trump. We talked about this last time. He's entertaining and he's, wealthy, successful. He commands a room. He knows how to make fun of people using, grade school insults. That's as much depth as one would require to be entertained enough to vote for Trump. That's what happened. It wasn't a deep embedded philosophy of his politics and everything else. They went through that. They went through the wall. They went through Muslim bans. They went through grabbing by the pussy. They went through all of their conservative religious sort of stomping grounds and said, fuck all that. That's all really bullshit. We like him and we like the way he stands and he seems to command a room. But
also I feel like it's a cultural indoctrination of that Midwest mentality, or
of course, part of it.
And I don't know how that all changes. I told you we've always talked about that. I don't think it ever will. I think it's always going to be an issue. I think that's the sad part.
Human nature. Yeah.
Well, it's the sad part of our country. I mean, again, you look at these Middle Eastern countries and you look at our country, and there's sometimes you can see threads of similarities. Where. I didn't want to go down that road, but we did. If you want to switch gears, because I know you don't like this type of talk. We can.
It's not true. I don't know where you got that from. I'm highly entertained right now.
We don't like partisan and stuff like that, but we'll just keep chasing our own tails. But
no, it's not. I don't like partisan, but that has no connection to me not discussing, politics, partisan politics, and what I believe are the impacts. I don't like BenShapiro, but talking about him is to me is just as illuminating and entertaining as any other conversation. I'm just saying I wouldn't necessarily want to, hang out with them at a bar for 24 hours, but I would prefer, rather than talking about them, having a beer with them at a bar for 2 hours and talking about these things, because I think it would be outside of the realm of cameras and everything else, a more accurate, honest conversation. And Jimmy Dore called out Bill Maher, but Bill Maher had BenShapiro on his show. What is it? Politically correct? No. What is that? No.
Two douchebags talking between two douchebags.
But at the same time,
you're not going to play that clip because that's painful. You want to talk about painful to watch. You're not. You want to talk complete nonsense, and that's a clip. I watched that clip already because it rolled ass after the other one, and it's hard to stomach. It's really, really hard to stomach.
Well, here's something. Taking a brief break. We could take a brief break here for a callback.
Well, you can.
Yeah, here's a callback. You said something earlier that there was nothing more irritating than hearing two white people talk about something. I forget exactly.
Hate speech.
Hate speech. Here's something that's sideways related to that, which is sort of amusing as a brief intermission. And it's white people once again coming to the defense of black people in a, I believe, humorous way. You'll see what I mean here. Brief intermission, and I'm going to play this, and you're going to know what I'm talking about. Hold on.
He is the first president in modern history to have zero political or military experience, and he has no interest in helping the disenfranchised.
Ref, how do you feel about this? You must be more concerned than all of us.
Yeah, that's a really good question.
Well, I mean, obviously I have cause for concern, right? But my parents saw a lot worse, so I still have hope.
That is such a positive outlook, but all I feel is outrage. How can we expect to progress as a nation if this is how we're treating our poor?
Ugh. Right, but, I mean, I'm not poor.
No.
No.
Oh my God, that was so rude.
That's okay.
We know we're all rich in our own way.
Yes. Rich in love.
Nope.
Rich blood.
Nope.
Rich in stamps.
Nope. See, no, I'm not poor. See, just because I'm black doesn't mean I'm poor.
I'm not racist.
Seriously, if anyone's poor, it's me.
Exactly. Same. We're not here to judge.
We're not here for that. Pizza's here.
Oh, so hungry.
How do you guys want to pay for this?
Split it 4 ways?
Yeah, totally.
No, there's 5 of us, so 5 ways.
No, we know you would pay if you could, Raph. No need.
Yeah, seriously, dude. Save that. Get a phone card, call home, or whatever.
Change?
We work the same job. I can't talk to you guys anymore. Hey, Trap.
Oh, I'm sorry. I only have $1. I hope that's okay. God bless.
What is wrong with all of you? I'm black, not poor. I have a 401k.
Jeez, how slow is that internet?
They only have dial-up.
Is it just like how your neighborhood works?
I live a block away from you.
It's crazy to think how different things can be just a block away. I think we'll find that gentrification is a bigger problem than any of us ever realized.
Tell me more.
Gentrification now. These affluent people are coming in and they're pushing these poorer people out of the neighborhood just because they think it's kind of cool, taking from these people, these families that no longer afford to. I mean, that's the thing. It's about the reality of the situation, which is these families, affluent people who have been pushing these poor people pushed out of their own homes. It's these people they've been there, years and years.
Cheer up, friend. Things are going to turn around.
I'm not Poor!
We can all see your toes sticking out of your shoes, dude.
These are sandals. Act like you never seen sandals before. How did you even get in here?
I found this key card.
Hey, we don't have to look at that.
Forget this, man. I'm going home. Oh. This hobo bindle is a very expensive item at Urban Outfitters.
Hey, man. Can you lend me $100?
I'm queer, not rich.
Thought I was dead, didn't you? Mike Trapsure thought I was. And now I'm heading right for him. In a matter of minutes, I will be... Oh, come on. Really? Really? The traffic is... It's like not even rush hour, and I have a thing to do, and I want to... It would be so... Oh!
Hi, I'm Raphael from College Humor.
Hey, stop that from playing. Did you stop that from playing? Oh, yeah, you did. Just another thing. Unless you want to comment on that, I just something real quick. That
was just an amusing little thing.
Because I didn't get to see all of it, but did you see the thing going on Facebook about what percentage Neanderthal you are too? That's a whole new trend to find out what percentage Neanderthal you are.
I missed that.
Okay, so here's my take on Neanderthal. Here I am. I'm 100%. I blew the joke. That's called blue. So right now I'm 0%. I'm 0% Neanderthal, and then slowly, I am 100%.
Okay. Yeah, well.
As I go profile. So that's how I confuse people. I'm like, when people see me, they're like, that guy might be halfway good looking. Then I slowly start to turn my head. Oh, no. He's a Neanderthal.
Well, that's a good thing. I mean, the traditional way for a white male to demonstrate that he's a Neanderthal is to open his mouth. Right. So the fact that you're using his nose is...
Mine is turning my head to reveal my...
I think that's sort of like an improvement.
Neanderthal head escapes... Yeah, so that's the interesting thing is, as a black man, a lot of times you don't talk about all the different things that you go through. But that being said, I would say you two things. We talked about you brought your friend.
Well, not everybody enjoys me breaking out into a set of Kumbaya.
Was that say that again?
Not everyone enjoys me breaking out into Kumbaya.
I see.
Yeah, go on. Swing low.
So you wanted to break your friends down to 150, and I don't know if you ever talked about this before, but the reason why I'm not a big friend person is I always feel like my friend. Usually people will say something to offend me eventually. So usually you think people are good and they're eventually going to offend you. So I keep my circle
we
very
talked
tight.
about that actually
me
in
and
the
my
past.
dog. Yeah, we talked about that. So I don't know I can't imagine what it's like for a black guy to have to sit there and listen to everything that comes out of people's mouths because I've learned to really control myself and try to put myself in a zen state so that when something does pop out of someone's mouth, I don't. Because they want you to. Some people are doing it to get a reaction, and some people, you just have to be like, "Oh my god, I can't believe they just fucking."
Yeah.
Okay, well, I gotta go.
Well, I mean, the trick is to just push as many people away without even trying.
You know what? I never try that.
It just happens, huh?
I don't communicate. I don't. Like I said,
Yeah.
I just don't know how to. I don't know how to be a friend. My dog is training me how to be a better and better friend. Also, just so another note, just because that was a comedy bit, and I know it's good for us to go to new topics every once in a while. So one of the things that did occur, which is I was sort of
he's so self-aware. This Matt Stewick.
Well, I got into a weird place with
Sacramento,
the movement, and I did. Delete or defriend one of my comedy friends. Like, we weren't good comedy friends. We were okay comedy. It wasn't like, I wouldn't say anybody in the comedy world I'm that good friends with because, like I said, I don't know how to be a friend. Mm-hmm. But it was, so you sent me a clip of a comedian tonight.
I mean, I do that. I do that almost daily, but the problem is that these people were not professional like yours were.
What are you saying? You lose friends who are comic?
They certainly think they are. I think I might need to get rid of this one, but please continue.
So I defriended this guy, and you sent me a clip for. I think we were talking about my wife being one of 12, and you sent me a clip of a comedian who I defriended during the movement because he was. We were again. It was got involved with some sort of political conversation on his page. I was going after somebody.
You were
who
friends
was
with the person I sent the clip of?
Yeah. So his name is
no
Steve
idea.
Hofstetter. His name is Steve Hofstetter, and he's a comedian.
Quantum connections forming still. Yeah.
What's that?
Quantum connections still forming.
I don't know.
I mean, I didn't know you were friends with him, and I sent this to you as a random response. Yeah.
Synchronicity, yeah. And as far as that, because it's just strange that you would pick that guy. So you must have picked this. So, and it was also strange because the bit that you sent me was about. So the bit you sent me that got us there was I told you that my wife was one of 12, and then you sent me a bit from Steve Hofstetter, who's about was it about a heckler who got offended by a joke about him talking about people having too many kids, and it was at the same time that I'm looking at a notebook from a comedy notebook from 2005 where I wrote down the line, where my parents trying to fuck us poor, we're going to fuck till we're poor was the line. And I just left it alone because to me that seemed hack and not a very, not a new premise. So if I write something down, yeah, that's funny. Who wouldn't else think of that? Then to me, it's not good enough to bring to stage. So anyway, he did bring it to stage and he had a long, big bit. But I was going to say, this guy, Steve Hofstetter, I did get into like an argument on his page, and then he was like pro Hillary, and I was like, are you seriously? You can, and he's a very smart guy, like highly intellectual.
Yeah.
And you can tell by the way he talks and carries himself. He believes he's highly intellectual. He is intellectual, but not enough.
But a lot of people are automatically intellectual. I mean, a lot of the Hillary things were like, oh, this is the right thing to do. So it comes from a good place. It's intelligent, etc. But there was sort of no critical thought in like, can we think about Hillary and I'm not saying anything magical. A lot of black people did that with Obama, right? Sure, he was great. Everything else, he was personable. I voted for Obama, so I'm not saying anything remotely controversial. But there were a lot of black people who were like, he's black, finally. We've arrived, and voted for him in that sort of automatic thing. And so it's not really a commentary on one's intelligence, but sort of where does that intelligence come from, and then where does it end there? Or is there any sort of critical thought later into who this person is? And that's where Hillary was for me. Like, I'm so happy she's a woman. I think she's very smart. I think she's all that. But some critical thought was, something's going on, especially or even because of the entrance of Bernie to sort of give me a mirror to look into.
Well, again, I don't even know how our argument ended or began. Like I said, I just went to his page. Someone said something. He made something, like he picks a post. Somebody makes a comment that's a comic. I get in there. I just start throwing blows. And then he came in. I think he was trying to mediate. And I was like, where are you going with this? Are you telling me that you're taking Hillary over Bernie? And I was like, all right, as long as I know that, I'm out, bro. I'm like, I'm done with you. Bro. I like to use that word "bro" just to infuriate anybody. I'm like, all right, if you're going to go that way, then I'll just delete you as a friend. So I actually added him back as a friend tonight. But he was one of the reason why we're talking about this guy at all is that during the course of the time when I was a professional comic, he was one of the three. I got paid to tell jokes. So he was one of the three comics that I said to, you're going to be a star. So the three people that I said that you're going to be a star to is Kevin James, when he opened up for me in somewhere in like Pennsylvania or Strasbourg or something. And then it was Ted Alexandro, who probably nobody knows or heard of, but he's a very...
Name drop.
He was a very... he was writing very differently than everybody else was, very likable, but didn't happen. And then Steve Hofstetter, when I met him, he was really on top. He was super intellectual, and he was on top of technology. And I was like, well, this kid, if he combines comedy with technology, I mean, he's got to hit. So those two guys did not hit, but he has had a show on Fox, and he does. He's definitely still, super intelligent, and so I don't know where he is with this script, but I added him tonight. Maybe I can apologize, but he that's just weird that you sent that, and I mean, there's so many different ways I could go about that, about him, and here he is. So,
well, I mean, in a bigger picture, I mean,
that guy right there was outside stand-up comedy one night with like the hottest chick ever waiting for him. Like, and I go, who's this?
That guy.
Who's this?
Women love funny people.
Who's this girl? I'm going to totally. This is so out of school story that comics should never tell about another comic, but I just love that I can.
Approved.
Yeah. So she's sitting on this, and she is just smoking hot. I mean, just from just the outfit and just beautiful, and he's with her, right? And so I'm like, what's this all about? How did this occur? Because I'm just seething with jealousy. I gotta be honest. Yeah. Every girl, doesn't matter who, every girl that I see with another guy that I think is hot, that attracts me, I'm pissed and seething.
Did he marry her? Did he end up marrying her? Because he got divorced. I was wondering if that was became his wife.
That's not the way comedy works. So he goes, oh yeah, I met her at a bookstore up at like University of Connecticut. I'm like, what? And he's like, yeah. I told her come down to the city, meet me here, and see a show. I'm like, oh, and I was like, oh, what are you gonna do now? He's like, oh, I just told her I forgot something in my hotel room, so we're gonna head back there. I'm like, you fucking dog, I forgot something in my hotel room. Let's head on back.
Hashtag pre-MeToo.
And I was just like.
See, that's the thing.
Hashtag, I don't know where that's still, I don't know where that, but a guy like that, guy was with us. So if you wonder why people go into comedy, or you wonder about power, or you wonder about talent and how it's an aphrodisiac, yes, that absolutely is. It's a girl would drive all the way down Connecticut to see that guy and go.
Now, some in the post MeToo movement, now that we're in it, would say that's politically incorrect to suggest the wonder that a woman would just be so beyond someone's personality and character and even looks because of power and money and stature. What would you respond to that with?
I would say that there is undeniably an attraction to anybody who gets on stage, whether they're a comedian or a singer. And I'm sure there's empirical data. You could probably interview numerous comedians, and I can tell you there are so many ugly comedians that figured out right away that if they went on stage, they don't even have to be halfway funny. Yeah. You can be mediocre funny, and girls are going to come talk to you after the show. So again, it may be a Me Too moment, or people can take. I can only tell you of what I know and what I've seen. That if you get on stage and tell jokes, people and women will come and speak to you, and you can just sit back and just talk to them and see where it goes from there. Now, like I said, I was not a big womanizer. There was plenty of opportunity, but my bar was pretty high. I wasn't like these guys. They just they did it for whatever their crazy reasons were. I had to wrestle. That's the thing about me, man. I always have to wrestle with my conscience. Like, what am I doing? And I have to wrestle with this. Am I really doing this for the right reasons, or is somebody else in control right now? You know what I'm saying? Am I doing this purely for a?
At least you're sort of wrestling with it in real time. Like, my sense of honor and duty. This sounds self-serving, but it's not. It's really sort of.
No, let's see how far we can go with lying to ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, it's like my honor comes it evidence itself. Well, like in real time, if someone is being bullied, whatever, and I'm like, 3'2" and weak and don't know how to exercise or anything. So, but my honor will kick in, and I'll say something, and my mouth is extremely powerful. It's like as strong as Thanos in comparison to someone's fist. I've never really been into a single fight, even though I've almost been beat up multiple times. But he's nothing. But I always intervene without any consideration of self-harm. But I digress. In these situations where you're like in an intimate situation with a woman, pre, during, or post, you have at least the ability to sort of reason in real time and go, gosh, how do I, what, who, what, when, which is what I do. But more often than not, my honor is at an elevated level. And so I'm too stupid to even know or to even consider that something I would have to consider. Let me give you an example. Like, there was a girl I was dating. It was not dating, but, hanging out. Let's call it that. But completely not physical at all. Totally was totally into her. Beautiful girl, like taller than me, but just statuesque, intelligent. We were actually both up for a White House internship. This is whatever, long time ago, decades ago. And we were both up for the same interview. And we both were put in that position from the same source, right? Same contact. And we both decided not to go through with it because there was a burgeoning attraction. I mean, she was me. She was like a female version of me. And I was so into her. And so we had all of these interactions like this. And because I was younger, I was more immature, not in the way I acted, but just stupid, right? And so she was sort of aware and so and active and all these different things. Anyway, she comes over one night, and when I say night, it was like 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. I'm like in bed, asleep. She calls, and I'm like, what? Like an asshole. Like, what? Come on, what are you calling me for, right? Not in a second was I thinking, oh, this might be like a booty call or something. She's calling me at like 2 a.m. I'm like, what the hell? Because I won't even allow that sort of dark idea. And plus, I wouldn't even think, oh, it's finally happening. My fantasy is coming true. So she calls me at 2 a.m. and she says, hey, what are you doing? I'm in bed. Like complete asshole. And keep in mind, I was in love with this girl. And so she says, it's still early. I'm with my friend. Can we come over? So she brings her friend over, this beautiful, equally sexy woman. And my whole manner and tone, and I wish I could be cool in this story, was so like, oh, what the hell? She comes in, and in her mind, I can sort of, in hindsight, be like, this guy's a complete idiot, right? It's 2 a.m. So she comes over, she's quizzing me, she's interviewing me. Like, how thick are these walls? And like, what are you talking about? Like, if there's like a lot of noise, could anybody hear? I go, what are you talking about? They're regular walls, She's like, do you have any tapes? This is in the era of tapes. Do you have any tapes, like videotapes? I had a VCR in there. And I go, yeah, I got tapes. He's like, yeah, do you have any, tapes you can play that, I go, oh yeah. So I put in my curated videotape of Michael Jackson videos. I'm putting that in, I could just, in hindsight, in her head, she's like, this guy. Her friend is like leaning against my knee. She's curled up in my lap. She's saying all these suggestive things that I had no clue, because in my mind, again, that one unicorn fantasy is not about to come true. This is like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to have this horribly quick three-way, which is embarrassing for everybody. This is going to be awesome, because this is going to be the first time that this thing is going to happen. This girl is gorgeous, right? And so I get through the night. The girl goes, because I'm twiddling my thumbs. She's like, I don't want to do this anymore, which makes no sense to someone. I mean, anyone who had an amoeba of intellect, that doesn't make, in a sense, in the general, I don't want to do this anymore. Do what anymore, right? But me, completely clueless. The whole point is they left, and I can go on and on with the aftermath of this story, but it wasn't about maybe a week or two later where it was like, oh. Now, I'm a little bit stupid, but at the same time, it came from a pure place. It came from a girl can't come over? Someone you like, a hot girl can't come over, hang out with you, be next to your bed with her friend, right? Not consciously thinking of it, not like social justice warrior, but in that sort of, hey, we can hang out, we can chill, we can relax. This is not sexual. I don't have to be aggressive. I don't have to be thinking about. And this is someone who I wanted to date, someone I deeply wanted to date. So to bring it back around to what you're saying, it sort of, there are people who do the right thing for the wrong reasons, and there are people who do the wrong thing for the right reason. They don't know they're doing it. And then there's people like you who are always consciously sort of measuring, and rating whether or not this would be the right course of action. And then there are people like me who their base is so, just try to do the right thing, that often it blocks out things that are perfectly fine, but never I can't tell you how many times I've been out with the woman, historically or whatever, and not realize I'm on a date, not realize that the girl's into me. I find out, yeah, I used to like you. Wait, what? Why? Most guys can relate to this, right? If you saw that, I'll end here. If you saw that video with Jimmy Fallon and Nicole Kidman, you remember that? Nicole,
I have so many ways. I'm waiting for you to. I have so many questions because
I'm going to end right here. But just do you remember that Nicole Kidman goes on the Jimmy Fallon's talk show? You never heard of this?
No.
And he's Saturday Night Live, whatever. It's the exact same thing. And she goes over there because she likes Jimmy Fallon. I think she had left Tom Cruise, whatever. She's single. She goes over to his house. He's playing video games, everything else. He wanted to go out. She left there because he was so clueless. Like, he's an idiot and he doesn't like me. He's not attracted to me. But Jimmy was so clueless that this beautiful woman is in his apartment. They're alone. And he's like just being a dweeb. He's like, hey, you want to play a game? You want to play a game? Completely clueless. It was so uncomfortable and funny, but it felt, watching that interview where she tells Jimmy this, it felt just like that night.
I think that's happened a couple of times with different talk show hosts that somebody came back. I know I think it happened with Letterman as well. A couple people who had crushes on Letterman.
Well,
I think Julia Roberts implied that something could have happened with Letterman and her, that she was sort of pursuing him.
Yeah.
I think it happened several times. But I don't even know where to go with all that, because whenever we talk, I usually have at least 5 stories that I have to weigh in my head, like which ones I can actually put out there, which ones are safe to tell. But one is
you're in a safe, progressive space.
No, because I have a job and a kid and a wife, and so and I'm not Howard Stern or anything like that, and I'm not making money to do this. So one is, it stinks that you're a bit of a nerd back then, big time nerd, because Michael Jackson, a montage tape is like that couldn't have been a bigger red flag that someone says put a tape in. And okay, girls, let's get down to this.
A hero of the black people. How dare you?
That's not a slow jam move. That is a weak move by your boy.
I'm telling you, I was a complete idiot. And keep in mind, I can't state this enough. I would have crawled and grabbed breadcrumbs to get to this girl, but it never entered my mind. Yeah.
Okay, but so I still think that you're not. I'll have to read your Wikipedia page someday, because I do believe that there is some deep-seated stuff going on there for that to fail as miserably.
Oh, I'm telling you, I'm an idiot.
And how old were you?
Oh, let me see. I have to think about this. I mean, how old are White House interns? I mean, maybe.
Yeah, so you're pretty young. So that's possible that there was. It makes sense.
It was
for many different reasons. But the other question I would ask you is, how often do you kick yourself in the ass when you go back and play that over in your head? How often does that memory come back yearly, would you say?
Well, let's see. This year is 2018. So it's still recurring in my mind.
Right. So as guys, again, women might not realize. So I've had many different similar situations, but one happened in college. So, and it's a little bit different. And because you were caught off guard, you were sleeping. There wasn't, if I was you, I would have hopped up. I don't drink, but if I had alcohol, I would have started to immediately start to drink. I mean, just because of nervousness. If they're coming over, I want to get the edge off. I don't want to come off as a goofball now if they're coming over. So I think that's part. But so I would tell you the one story I had one night. I go out to college, and it's the first night that I ever truly, truly got high. I didn't smoke a lot. I smoked a little bit in high school, but I never felt like I got high. I had a friend who was, always had it available. He always had a hitter, and he always had stuff, right? And we always would sit outside on the porch during a party and do something. But I never felt anything from him, so I could do it. So this one night at college, I do my first real series of bong hits, and I am just high off my ass. I have never been so I finally understand what high was. Like, we were just walking around, I was just laughing at everything. Everything was funny. The way that person laughed, the way that person was parking his car. And it was just, for the first time in my life, I'm like, I have no idea why everything is so funny and why I'm laughing. So, then we go to the bars. We're getting slam drunk. Now, these two girls are like staying close to me as if, and that's terrible to bring back, but as if there's some sort of mission going, as if I'm a plane and they have to like bring me in, right? So they're on a mission. I have no idea, right? I'm just drunk and high off my ass. They get me all the way back to their dorm room. We are in the room. The one girl is standing watching us. The other girl starts to crawl up on my chest and begins to kiss me. And I say to her, "Don't I know your boyfriend? Aren't we close friends?"
Wow.
And it's like, everybody pulled up. Everybody swerved left. I just remember getting up, walking out of the room.
So what sort of, I think there's some deep-seated issues there. I need to follow up with this. Do you still follow up with these thoughts every once in a while?
So two things. So two things. Mm-hmm. There's not a day in my life that I don't think about that. So that's, I don't think there's a day in my life that doesn't come back in my head and I go, you fucking, because it was so pure and it was so in the moment, it was so college and it so didn't matter. And I'm going, don't you have a boyfriend? Her boyfriend was one of my suite mates. That's what was the issue. Her boyfriend was my suite mate. And he was a good guy, sweet guy.
I got to tell you some synchronicity after this.
So I let it go. But the other thing, how I deal with it mentally is how I deal with it when the memory comes back and I go, why didn't you? I go, what were those two girls' names?
This is
Do you remember their names?
This is amazing. Yeah.
Nope. No clue what their names were.
Yeah.
So that's maybe why you didn't do it, because you didn't know, you didn't know these people and you needed to know more. You don't know what the issues were going on there. You hadn't, felt out the situation. And I've had numerous situations, particularly in college, where I had to make, this was before I've seen so much bad shit at college when I went away, and I had to make some real decisions all the time that based on, what's the right thing to do here. And, it's hard when you're drunk or you're young and, I've had decisions where I just like, you know what, I gotta get out of here. I just felt like, all right, she seems unstable and this could go horribly wrong. If this doesn't end the way she thinks it's going to end, or, the next day, and I've made some great calls. So, I gotta go with my gut most of the time. Yeah. Most of the time I've made some great calls. But yeah, as far as that, that plays in my mind, and the way I deal with it is I say, tell me the names of those girls that you were talking about. I do not remember the names of those girls. So.
I have almost the exact same story, and I'm not going to retell it in such length, but really, almost, page per page or second per second. But what's even more interesting, again, like, one of my best friends at that time, in fact, we're still best friends. Not best friends, but you know what I'm saying. We're still close friends. We're not just Facebook friends. And she's now married and everything else. But at that time, she was dating my best friend. And I just, man alive, beyond crush on this girl. This girl was, every guy wanted to date her. My friend was sort of goofy, but pure. He was just so pure that it was hilarious. He was just a great character. And she was this wild child and everything else. And for some reason, they were together. It was an oddball. And I was friends with this guy, right? And I just had such a crush on this girl that went beyond a crush. I was like, God. And to the point where I told my buddy, I was like, make sure you never break up with her, because I would just die. I would love, so it was like a joke. I was a big clown. But it was true, right? And so she was just so free, and she reminded me almost like a flower child, right? But she would, she would do this, right? And with him next to me like this, and I would avert my eyes, right, out of that base. And see, that's a reaction. That sort of shows you who your character. And she was like, "Oh, why did you turn away?" oh, what are you afraid? I go, no. It's respect. You don't think I wanted to see? I would love to see. But my instinct was to avert my eyes. It was like, oh, I never thought of that. I go, I know. You never think of stuff like that. You're a wild child. And so, anyway, they ended up breaking up. She dated all my other friends, all of our friends and stuff. And all these things. And the whole time I was like, gosh, I wish that I could, right? So she went after one friend after another, after another. Got to the point where she was single again. Years later, she had broken up with my best friend. We were doing college and everything else. And to this day, I don't remember. She never called because I had moved and I didn't even know what she was doing, whatever. I just knew that she had broken up. Somehow she tracked me down, knocks on my door, completely unannounced, and I was like, oh, whatever. And I was on the computer doing some stuff, playing around with tech stuff, and I had a camera set up, and at that time, it was just like taking snapshots, like capturing snapshots, like just, one every 30 seconds or something, right? That's as fancy as the technology was. And we come in, she comes in, and we're talking for a little bit, and she lays on my bed. And keep in mind, this is very similar to the first story in the sense that I wanted to date her badly. And so, complete that. So she starts laying on my bed, and then she starts to self-pleasure. Okay? And almost no different. And so smoking hot, right? But almost no different than you. This is what cracks me up. Not cracks me up. It's funny and interesting. Everything slowed down in my mind. I mean, in my mind, it felt like, because I was looking at her, and it was like 3 seconds, right? But in my mind, it was like a minute and I was thinking, I was like, especially after coming off of my earlier experience, years earlier, I was like, I'm not going to let this pass. But she always had a certain sadness about her. She talked about suicide and everything else. Like, I was the only one who could calm her down and stuff. And she had dated all my other friends and everything else. And it was literally that little cartoon red devil, and not literally, figuratively, that little red devil and that little angel, all in slow motion, because it was a split-second thing. But I was like, oh, this is perfect. This is the best thing ever. But I was like, gosh, does she really want to do this? And so it was just that I could have done anything. All I had to do was go over there, and it was on. A few seconds passed, and what came out of my mouth was this. What are you doing? Right? That sounds familiar, like yours, like what you, and that's all it took. It snapped her out of whatever mindset she was in. She was like, and she said, oh, I don't know. But of course, she probably was like embarrassed or like I was judging her, which I wasn't. Because if I started moving in on that, whatever, it would have been fine. But I said, what are you doing? So she snapped out of it. She's like, oh, I don't know. Zipped up and everything else. Got up. And that was it. But keep in mind, my camera was rolling, right? It was taking a snapshot every 30 seconds because I was doing some geeky thing, right? And so we were talking for a little bit. I don't remember the depths of that conversation. But I remember going, she's like, you got to delete those pictures. And I was like, can I have one at least, right? Please. And so we literally sat there, and what could have been an awkward moment wasn't, because she was always, expressive. But we went through, it's clips, it's not a video. It's like several, hundreds of photos and being saved into a folder. I think I was testing out a new webcam or something. And so we went there, and she deleted the ones, and she said, yeah, you can have that one. I still have these photos, all right? I can't divulge who this person is, but I forgot to preface this, was as beautiful and sexy as she was, I've never seen her hotter than that night. I mean, she seemed just, she had the fuck me boots, excuse me, on. It was glorious. It's like, let's get married, right? So we delete the pictures, and I'm walking her out at some point, and I'm going to the door, and I'm in my mind going, what the, I'm like, again? And I go, why did I do that? And in my mind, it was sort of the right thing, but I was so torn. And as she was walking out, she was like, she turned to me and she said this. She goes, thank you. And, excuse me for the language, but this is what she said. She said, thank you for not fucking me. And I remember I turned towards her and I go, really? And she's like, yeah. And she said, like, why didn't you? And I go, I'm paraphrasing, so I don't remember the exact details, but it was something along the lines of, well, you got to know that I would have loved to, but you have dated like all of my friends, and you've always sort of judged your self-worth through these relationships. And I always thought you were better than these people. I always thought you were so funny and so smart and so beautiful, but there's like a little bit of sadness to you. And I just thought in that moment that maybe I was just going to be another guy and you were checking them off the list because I was like the last one that held out. And I want you to leave here. And again, I'm paraphrasing. I remember and I want you to leave here knowing that I cared more about you in this moment than I cared more about me in that moment. And I said something, which I won't say, you'll find out later. I said something after that about how unique she was, using some words. And that was it. Then she left. And the reason I won't say those words, because when I found out when I got an update on her life, like a couple of years later, we lost a little bit of contact. Not contact, but we went to college and stuff. Is that she opened up a business which reflected those two words that I told her why she was special. She started this business and called it that thing. And I go, I got that positive, I got that like I did the right thing. I was like, yes. It still hurts to this day because you don't know how smokish hot she was. But I got at least sort of confirmation of doing the right thing, even if I sort of knew it was the right thing. But you always sort of wonder, like, what harm could it have done? Come on, just a little, whoa, that was going to be. But it sort of gave her something, I think, in the back of her head that not to over dramatic, make it melodramatic, but maybe sort of was a split that I am important. Now she's married. I know her husband has how many kids? Just one kid, right? Yeah, one kid. Has a beautiful daughter and everything else. And so you think about those small little impacts that can have great impacts. And I was willing to sacrifice that very painful moment because it would have been just a wonderful experience for me and everything else. But I think she ultimately got more out of that than ever I could. So for whatever, but your story has reminded me of that moment exactly to the T.
Well, I always want to go back to every girlfriend I've had or any encounter and either apologize or update or figure out. Like, I'm definitely one of those weird guys who's like, yeah. I know with Facebook, I know I went to like my 6th grade. I had a girl who had a crush on me in 5th grade, and I I was just too into sports, as you read my journal, and I never pursued. And then like a year later, she like hated me because she was like the hottest thing. So on Facebook, I was like, hey, I wanted to contact you to just tell you what like occurred in 6th grade and why I spurred you. She never even responded. She's like, what the fuck is this for real? This fucking guy wants to contact me to figure out what happened in the 6th grade? No, you're not getting a response, you nut. You just go on with your life.
Well, let me ask you a question, not a statement, a question. Like, what do you think it says in terms of maybe even relating it to the Me Too movement, but just male psychology or even human psychology, where we still retain these moments? Is it because they're electric moments, or does it comment on something more about getting older or thinking about.
Well, it's funny because you did keep it in full circle. Because one thing is like your story is it's Black Mirror. I mean, it's like it's a Black Mirror moment because you have this weird technology camera going. So you actually got to see in real time how you were appearing and how it was all going down, only in a non-verbal way, right? So you two were able to review a sort of very poignant moment in two people's lives,
it was,
right?
Yeah.
And you're deleting that moment in a very Jim Carrey. What's that movie?
Very painful.
You're deleting the moments. You're never going to be with this woman. That moment's fleeting away, and this memory is going, and you're doing it together, and you're making a decision of what you can keep. It's very deep. It's actually a short story that should be written. But that's a different question. The question you're asking, I can't answer because I've wanted to be a writer since maybe I knew it was normal to want to be a writer. So I want to keep all.
You are a writer. As a comedian.
Well, it's funny that you say
different
that,
form of writing, but exact same sort of dedication and.
Well, you want to talk about things that are painful and personal. I've dated more than enough women who've said to me, "You're not a writer." So and you'll never forget that. Because I'm writing, I'm a writer, and they're like, "No, you're not a writer."
Yeah, but these people.
Whoa! Talk about going for the jugular, because I know there was times where I didn't respond, or I was like, "No, I fucking get paid. I get on stage, I tell jokes, I get paid. I'm a writer. I'm defending myself." And then there's some that I just let go. I think after a while, as soon as I said that, I was like Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank. In my head, I'm like, "You're dead to me."
Yeah.
That, you'll never fix that statement.
Well, obviously,
they're
a little bit ignorant, or a lot ignorant, but more so just,
but again,
they're intentionally trying to put a knife in your heart.
And I've dated some women who I guess at the end were really like, I know where he lives, I know where his heart is, and I'm just going to stick it right in there. So that's happened more than another time. So I always want to be a writer. I've always wanted to remember all my different events. It's different for me. And we've talked about this many times. I mean, I wish I could have kept a journal from a younger age. It would have been fascinating. I had a computer at my college, and I didn't even keep a journal then, so I don't really have anybody to blame. I don't know why I didn't start to do what I said. I think it, again, has a lot to do with parenting. I remember my mom, I started to write, and my mom came in one time. I was using her typewriter, and I remember her ripping the story out and, don't use my typewriter. And I just remember, you're just so startled, and you thought your mom would have been so impressed that you were typing and writing the story. Mm-hmm. She came in, pulled the story out, don't use my typewriter. And it was it was, you won't forget that moment. You're like, holy fuck, what was that? So
my father threw away my collection of Highlights magazines, and that just crushed me. And he didn't do it out of any maliciousness, but to him, he had zero emotional connection to my Highlights. And he was like, look at this trash, he threw it out. And I had such a, those they're still going on, but I love those, and they probably would have been worth money today, because I was a pack rat keeping those, because those experiences were in those magazines and what was happening around them and during the time. So yeah, I can relate to that.
So it's sort of fascinating. There's different reasons why writer, comedy, wanting to document my life, to see the changes, to go back and understand different events. I've always had a thing about hot chicks, and this is nothing new. Howard Stern's covered it, but you do realize over time that hot chicks really like the bad boy who knows how to be the bad boy, who dresses like the bad boy. If you get a really hot smoking, and even they don't turn out right, because what the hell happened to Angelina Jolie? Jesus, whoa,
she's still hot.
No, but I'm saying, why is she bringing Brad Pitt out and just dragging him through the mud like you're not a good dad? I don't understand doing that when you have all these kids and starting this public row that's going to affect your children. It doesn't make sense to me. It's that doesn't seem like the right way to go if you have all these young children that you're trying to raise and bring this thing publicly. It just seems strange. I'm sure everybody's financially fine over there. You don't have to bring this to the public. But anyway, to get a hot chick, you really have to play the bad boy role. And again, you have to decide, do I want to fake it and play the bad boy role? I've always been a straight edge. So if a hot chick comes my way, it's just what is happening? I'm getting the hot chick that I should not be getting. I got to just enjoy this moment. So hot chicks like bad boys, and you got to dress that way, and you got to talk that way, and you got to act that way. And I've never, if they start talking to me, they're like, what is this? This is not what I signed up for. This weirdo. So I've never been able to like hold it together. Or the way you get around that is you meet that person for one night, you're in the bag, you drink a little bit, and they have no idea who you are. They think you're somebody else. You know. So that's that. Again, that's the other thing that always scared me is that you could be somebody else when you're drunk, right? You can be somebody else when you drink. I've had smoking hot chicks that again came my way that like I saw in college, and you hook up and you're like, I never thought this was going to happen, and then I'd be sitting there writing a paper, right? writing a paper, and there's a knock at the door. I open the door, it's this smoking hot chick. She's totally drunk. And she comes in the room like, okay, well, there's the bed. Go lay down because I got a paper to write.
Well, that's the problem. That was sort of like with the two women, two girls at the time, who were over. I was a boy, so everybody settled down. But when they came over, it's an unimaginable thing. In your little tiny puny, you're like, come on, who am I? What am I? And so when you're presented with an opportunity like that, you can go extreme and completely miss it, like me. But there could be other moments where you're like fully present, but you're still going, I'm the luckiest guy in the world. And you go, oh, I'm the luckiest guy in the world, right? You get a little jump in your step, and I don't want to say you try to upgrade, but you're like, oh, look what I can do. Look what I can do, right? And so you start to like, oh, right? And I can't think of the Chris Rock line, but he's like, men are... Help me if you remember it, but Chris Rock says something along the lines of men will cheat based upon availability and opportunity, something like given the opportunity and wherever they are. And so that's who they will whatever sort of pursue. But I lost my train of thought.
I have to always do that to myself. Like, I always downgrade myself to keep myself out of trouble. I'm like, what do I'm poor, I'm old, you know what I'm saying? I always have to ground myself before I start thinking like, a lecherous guy. I have to ground myself in reality of who I am. And I don't think... That's a
double-edged sword.
Well, it is because it'll drag you down, but at the same time,
it'll drag you up, though, too, wouldn't it?
It's a possibility. It hasn't worked for me. But
what I'm saying is if you keep moving yourself like, oh, I'm this and I'm old and I'm all that, that sort of opens up a wider door to me of someone peeking in. They have more space to peek in, and you go, oh, you looking at me? You looking at me? You know what I mean? If you sort of like, I'm saying as a married man, you have to really find ways to control your own, whatever it is, like get yourself wrapped around who you really are and what you're all about. So it's a constant conversation. Now, I don't think all guys have to do that. Some guys are completely family men. They're completely businessmen. That's what I'm saying. I was a stand-up comic, so are there men
I don't know.
I mean,
I don't know if they're willing to admit.
Yeah.
I assume that they're all very similar. That's my take. I think a lot of guys would deny that, and for many different reasons. But my take is I think I have a real good handle on the way most guys are, or the way they wish they could be. I mean, there's definitely certain things, but like I said, I have to develop ways to just curtail my behavior. I'm always inside my head, trying to curtail or push myself to act the right way, to do the right things, to make the phone calls, to go shop, I'm always. So I don't think I'm as normal as I could be, but I think most guys do struggle with being a guy, and I think the women. I love the women who
people struggle.
Guys.
People struggle to. I think humans struggle in what it means to be human.
And I know we agree to disagree on that. I have always felt women are way better than men, and it'll always be my contention. I will never defend men.
We're not saying anything in disagreement. I mean, I think women are better than men too.
But you're always
what I'm saying is
you always go back to but they're all humans. Look,
no. See, I'm not saying that. I hate that sort of those sentimental platitudes. I hate them. What I'm saying is my personal belief, and I've stated this to many people in the past, that women are smarter and all these different things. But what I'm saying is, I think both men and women equally, if not more so women, struggle with what it means to be human, and what it struggles to mean to be women. That has nothing to do with them being better or not. I think, and I know this, women every day are questioning their self-worth. their physicality? Are they beautiful? Are they intelligent? The society is sort of forcing them to ask those questions. Men that they date or whoever they date, they're constantly, you ain't shit, right? And I just think it gets more overlooked that men are always questioning too. They're questioning, am I strong? Am I a provider? And all these different things. Well,
that's funny because I still feel like men, and the guy, BenShapiro, is similar, is because I saw him do another video. We don't do enough. And men think they do enough to help women. They think that everything's okay and they do enough to help women towards equality. And I don't have the data. I only have life experience. Most guys are just like, I don't get it. I don't get what they want. I don't get what the issue is.
Well, that's of course.
It's just like, you're just like, oh my God, you don't get it? Like, how do you not get? Like, I don't have time to sit here and tell you how to get it. So
Yeah, but you got to be careful with that though, because you're more woke than the average person. I'm not saying there aren't other woke people. There's millions of progressives, but what I'm saying is woke progressives, for all of their flaws, arguably can see things and sense things and be empathetic about things that other people aren't, and so if someone who's ignorant in the classical sense comes along and says, I don't get it, well, that's about right. We know you don't get it. And so should the response be, who the fuck are you? Or should it be more, yeah, I get it. But it's a compliment to you and other people, just like geniuses and everything else. Geniuses rarely think that they're geniuses. I mean, feel that they're geniuses. Their reaction to most things is more organic. It's more like, gosh, these people are dumb, which is different. All right, which is much different from going, oh, gosh, I'm really smart. They think they're at a normal state because that's from where they come from, and they just sort of think, God, people. And so you meet these people, and I will tell you, they're often just woke people. It's that feeling like, what the hell is this person doing? That's a sign of genius, right? That's the way it exhibits itself. I don't get why people are beating each other up and smacking each other. So you're blessed with the curse and the gift of being awake. And when someone dumb comes along and is sort of like, I don't get it, remember your position on the totem pole and go, okay, I should maybe educate this person and bring them up. Because to expect people who are sort of dumb to suddenly become smart and go, I now get it by themselves isn't, intellectually right. Not the right thing to do.
But I always feel like when you run into these people, so I'm a gambler, I'm a card player, I'm a comedian. My job is to read people as quickly as possible and move on. So
quadruple threat.
If I sense that, I'm not going to spend my time. But I'll go to something more topical. I'm very, very happy with LeBron James and what he's trying to do. And I have something just so it's not just an empty statement. And so when LeBron James does what he does and speaks out against Trump and he inspires other athletes to speak against Trump and then everybody jumps on him, if someone came to me and would like, oh, I can't believe LeBron James, or, oh, did you see what LeBron James did? And they would ask me and they go, what do you think about what LeBron James did? Are you for it, against it? I would be like, do more, buddy. Do more. Because I'm so proud of what he's done. I'm like, and do more. Like, I know he's doing, I always come to someone and say, you got to do more. And that's the way I always feel with myself. It's like, I got to do more. I always feel like I got to do more. Why do I do this silly thing with you? Because I know it's a grind. I know that this thing is going to happen overnight. If you talk to Dore and Rogan, it was a grind. You do the show, you do the show, you do the show, you do the show in hopes that eventually it's going to some reason take off. Like, obviously they both have a leg up. They have followings and stuff. But it's always about doing more. So, if I look at someone like him, I'm just like, wow, okay, someone's actually doing something. That's to me standing up when you don't have to stand up. It goes back to issues that many times I've dated women and something bad has happened. I've been in a place where we're at a pool hall. Somebody throws an umbrella across the pool hall. It hits the girl I'm dating in the head. I stand up. I go, who the fuck threw that? It's like 8 to 10 guys standing around a pool table with pool balls, cue sticks in their hands, and I go, whoever threw that, get the fuck over here and apologize right now. You should be here right now seeing if she's okay. The biggest guy comes up, walks up to me and goes, I threw it. I said, first of all, I don't hear an apology. Second of all, we're fucking going outside right now. And he goes, whoa, I didn't throw it. Immediate, whoa, I didn't throw it. It was that guy over there. Then that guy goes, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I didn't. Next thing you know, they're apologizing. 2 minutes later, I'm like, I'm surprised I'm not bent over being raped on a pool table by 8 guys with a pool stick up my ass. But again, I prefer to flip the switch and go there. And when anybody does do it, I'm just so impressed because it takes a lot and you're risking everything. In that moment,
I mean, just 30 seconds with that. That goes to what I was saying earlier about is sort of comments on your natural character, because you don't really have time to think. You're just reacting, and your impetus at that moment is like, oh, I'm going to defend her. And I've been in these situations many times, and I'm not saying that in a way to, oh, I'm a big tough guy, because like I said, I've never. I'm
not either. They would have killed me.
That's what I'm saying. I would be pummeled to death, but it's a reaction. It's not a conscious thought of let me be cool. Because I was dating somebody, and some guy was like knocking on her door and everything else, and I started off with that sort of, okay, let me diffuse this, because she's yelling through the door, the neighbor's yelling through her door from outside, and I'm like, I'm the smart guy, right? And I'm going to be cool. I'm like, hey, everybody calm down, and, we can work this out. But the guy started going like, yeah, and this girl, and he started getting in her face, and I snapped. I was like, and I actually remember my brother, this is years ago, I remember my brother was there, and he was pulling me away, and I remember at that moment, I stepped outside, and I go, wait a minute, I just completely lost my cool. And the reason for that is very simple, because I'm not a tough guy at all. It's you and people like me and millions of other people call me, spit on me, go for it. I don't give a damn about it. All right, I don't give a damn.
Yeah, I know what you're gonna say. Yep,
but as soon as you start touching my family or friends or someone who's weak, I don't care how tall or I don't care if they're a minority or a woman. We will go insane every single time. And
right, that's the instinct.
If
it's me, I'll back down in a second. I'll be like, it's cool. I'll talk my way out of it. I'm like, look, I don't want it. I'll try to be rational, but if it's somebody else, it's a flip switch. Yeah, I'm the same way.
Doesn't matter if you're a Great Dane or not. This Chihuahua will go after your ass, and you'll be so terrified because this guy's got to be insane. Because I could pummel his ass, and he's chihuahuaing at me. I'm scared of this Chihuahua now, but it's not a conscious thought. It's an automatic response that says you're a good person.
Right, but I just don't think in this world, there's. I don't see enough of what it takes to make the difference. I think they're
not being raised.
That's the part and that's you talk about a Jim Dore, a Rogan, everybody doing their thing. It goes back to what we're talking about. That's why I want to see more people who are authentic and self-aware fight for the little guy and fight for the guys that need the support. And it just doesn't happen. It's so obvious to me. It's like when you see. I'm sorry, but when you see, and I know Democrats and Republicans are similar. It's a similar, but to me, Republicans are so more obvious in the villainous nature than Democrats. So Democrats are just better at disguising who they are, right? So you're living with all these villainous Republicans, and then we have these Democrats who are a little more dangerous because they hide who they are, right? But at the end of the day, everybody's become so jaded they're just like, well, whatever. I'm just going to continue to live in my bubble until someone breaks my bubble and makes me have to stand up. And it comes back to why we try to do this show. I think there's. Look, I stepped out of the movement. I just totally was. I was one of those. I should.
So did I. So did a lot of people who deactivated their accounts.
Yeah, because first of all, because look, we go back to technology. It always feels like everything gets bastardized and taken over and corporatized, and there's no answer to it. I mean, I always wonder what would happen to us if we ever got popular and then they wanted to screw with us. That would be another terrible day in the day of our lives. It's it's hard. Do you sell out? You know, that was another thing about Jim Dore. He said that they came to him and they offered him the opportunity to go and often do something else, and he said, "No, I'm happy, controlling it." And he doesn't have a manager and agent because he got lucky that he was on a slow part of his career. He had so all of it. He's in total control of what he's doing right now. So that's the other advantage of what we do. We're in total control. We don't have to answer to anybody. But again, there's not enough people doing, and I know there are people doing great work all over the place, but there's not enough. We don't have and again, it comes back to the election. We don't have the numbers. We knew we didn't have the numbers. It's all going to happen again, right? We don't even know as we head toward the midterm elections. And I know there's no, we know, me and you know there's no energy out there. There's no Bernie Sanders. There's none of that energy going on right now. If anything, there's still the Trump energy because he knows as we approach the midterm election, he's going to be able to fuck with every election and rile up his base because he knows how to do it, right? So as we approach the midterm election, everybody's like, oh, blue wave is coming. Look out. Well, this guy has a huge bully pulpit to just score. I think he's going to be able to fight this midterm election off, and I don't feel any of the energy that they're pretending again that's there, and I don't see anybody standing up. So we'll see if anybody comes. I used to talk about these heroes or who's going to do it. The reason why we like Cortez is because that was an important step. She beat an incumbent who we talked about. Well, I talked about. I'm sure you've talked about it in circles, but I used to do live streams.
It is incumbent upon you to speak on it.
Everybody had to be primaried, including Bernie Sanders, because everybody's feet had to be held to the fire and everybody had to answer for what occurred in this election. So her winning was, and again, so when you talk to a BenShapiro, that was an important moment for us because an incumbent lost and people said, no, we're going a little bit further left. Now, he doesn't like it because he's a fucking weaselly little conservative, and I can say that because he's got that weaselly little voice, and he calls out women, and he's not a brave guy. When it came to Puss Country Sub, he's just a guy behind a screen, and if I met him or somebody else met him, we'd have him for lunch. So that bothers me, and it bothers me that, again, right now it's August, September, October. I know how these things work now. First time I've ever really been really involved. You don't feel, there's no energy. It's so hard to keep track of what's going on. I don't sense any organization. I don't feel any blue wave. All I know is Trump is still, completely driving the narrative. And the left, whatever left media we call or whatever, is just doing their Russian thing, right? That's all we get from them. So there's no.
Well, can I tell you where it's evidencing itself? Since you're looking for signs
give me some lights give me some hope.
Because we're not in disagreement because I'm always talking about the partisan thing and I go it's sort of ineffective if the Avengers are over here and the anti-Avengers are over there and they're not fighting or talking, but this is not a counter to any of that because I believe those are silos. But I do think that there is a positive impact, a very huge impact of people who aren't in that sort of world, but they are reaping sort of the benefits of seeing, like gay people being able to marry and seeing people donating and all these different things for the very simple fact that humans are sponges. Indoctrination is sort of a negative word, but it's also a generic word, meaning you are indoctrinated with whatever is sort of there, whatever substance to be around. And the younger people, just because of their youth, they're having a wider and longer span of time to soak up a lot of these positive, almost side effects. Seeing that sort of Bernie effect happen, and they're not just talking about it. They're not just arguing on Facebook or Twitter or staying in these silos. They're getting this foundation of it's wrong to be mean to black people. It's good, me too, to support women and push them forward. not from any political, partisan, liberal, progressive standpoint or other, but just they're sponging up these things organically and naturally outside of a silo, but just as sort of that knee-jerk reaction of, hey, who threw this bottle out of the thing? So I mentioned this in a stream a couple of weeks ago about this Swedish girl on a plane. A young, I believe she's a Swedish student who stood up on a plane and said, "We are not taking off." Not in a political way or anything. She was like, there's a guy here who's about to be sent back to his country and probably killed. And in my inner soul, I can't let this happen. I'm young.
But you just mentioned a Swedish girl.
Yeah, a Swedish girl.
So we're talking about America. You know.
Let me play.
I would expect that from a Swedish girl. God bless those progressive Swedes.
This is but an example. I don't actually know where she was flying from or to, but I believe.
I want the proof from America's youth. I want you to tell me about stories about apps being built and movements being going and coalitions, and I want to know that it's happening here. Only because I can only control and this is where I live. I want things to change, obviously globally, but the problem is I get my energy and my experience from America, and I just know the midterm elections are approaching, and there's nothing out there. I mean, obviously I live in Staten Island, but I also go back and forth to New York City. I mean, there's no energy. There's no, the election's coming. But my point is we talk about being on the verge of Hitler, and we only do that again because it's the only thing we get to sort of relate to. Like, hey, why would that ever happen? Well, it should be the energy should be unbelievable. It should be palpable. People should be talking about it, and it just isn't the case. No one is talking about organizing and we're going to change this through the midterm elections. Look, maybe I'm completely wrong, but when come the midterm elections, that'll be our proof, and then it'll be too late, right? Because then they'll tell us, the turnout wasn't that great for the midterm election. We thought there was going to be a blue wave. Turns out, looks like turnout's going to be about the same it always is during a midterm election, and it's fucking Trump. You got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. I'm trying to keep the target where it is, and again, what can we and you change in the course of 3 months? I don't know, but the energy's not there, and someone's got to do something. Like there's got to be some sort of unbelievable event to occur that will change everything. Because I'm afraid that.
Well, the event is always personal circumstance. What's the old guy? John. I want to say John McCain. I almost said John McClane. Die Hard, but wasn't it his daughter who revealed to him that she was gay? Or am I thinking about somebody else?
I think, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was John McCain. And so, and I'm not even commenting on all the gay senators and everything else who you find out in some scandal that they're gay, and they're like passing laws and legislate. I oppose this horrible population, right? And they're secretly gay. I'm talking about just regular people who are opposed to this from an ideological, divide. And then their daughter comes up and is like, or their son comes up and is like, hey, I'm gay. And they're like, you know what? This is not so bad because it's personal, right? It comes from personal circumstance because everybody's a mouth puppet out of some random sort of ideology until it becomes personal. And you're like, gosh, I lost my job. Gosh, I have cancer and I need health care. And they change in a frickin' second because they experience it. And for people who can't experience it, we need to share those experiences with them, which is why I make such a big deal about these silos and these superheroes in the silo going, who's for healthcare? And everybody claps because the people who don't get it still don't get it. And so I'm really like, that's going to be the next stage. But until that happens, personal circumstance is going to do that. And And we see that with the young people because of their age, because they're discovering new things and then running into sort of expectations and access to knowledge and information going, wait a minute, this isn't supposed to be this way. Where earlier generations were like, it's always been this way, right? Which is completely different. It's always been this way. They're like, no, Me Too, blah, 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 blah. I know women aren't supposed to be treated this way. So they question it. But before, you're like, of course, you get on this couch, I'll get you apart. That's the way it's done. I don't know why I'm doing Rodney Dangerfield, but it's just the acceptance of what always is versus the benefit of youth going, I know what is supposed to be. Just like we go, hey, you're not supposed to be a slave. It's 2018. I thought we abolished this. But in slavery, you got a bunch of people going, oh, this is okay. Not the slaves. So that's why, I rant about the silos only because I know through personal experience, either experiencing it personally or experiencing someone else's personal journey is really the only way people who don't agree with you go, I get it now. I just met this person I'm completely opposed, and this person's great. This person cut my grass. This person babysat my daughter. I just had a nice drink at the bar. And this human, I realize this person's a human, and they're not all bad. You know, it's just, you know, it's, I got a black friend. This guy's not so bad. I don't mean that, but we have to cross the lines and interact, because that breaks people down at their weakest, you know, Achilles heel. Direct interaction, not partisan, political, even superhero raising. Just one-on-one. And change people one at a time, and not just hope for the best. You've made that friend, and you're like, there we go. And then affect it like a virus.
So I can agree with that.
But
again, to me, that's a simplification, because again, we don't have the numbers of people trying to make that effort, right? You're saying that's the method I would like to see happen, but you know, and I know that's not what's occurring, and that the troops that we have to go out and do that are not available. So we don't have the numbers. We don't have the people that would subscribe to that notion. Oh, that's the way you do it. Now, I drive for Uber. I can tell you,
we do have the numbers, and you're about to prove me right.
I have the numbers.
You're about to prove me right. Go on with your Uber story.
No, I'm about to prove you wrong.
No, right.
Yep, I'm about to prove you wrong.
Right.
I can't give you the second part of the story. I only give you the first part of the story. I can't give you the second part of the story because I'm sure I would pass some community lines with Uber. Sure. So I'll just do the one story. So I drive Uber. When you get good service, you're supposed to 5-star. So when I drive people, I often I tell them a long story. I said, please don't forget to 5-star me. Right. So I've made 1,000 trips on Uber. Only 50% of people take the time to go like this. Click, 5-star. So after me, giving them good service, talking to them, blah, 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 only 50% were like, you know what, I'm going to hook that guy up with a 5-star.
You know why that's different?
50% out of 1,000 people.
You're right. Your numbers are absolutely right.
That's a great sample of people caring, because you just told me.
That's different.
You just told me if you go out there and talk to people, you can power. So maybe it's my power of persuasion.
No.
I'm not asking much to go click.
That's completely different. Let me tell you why that's completely different. And everything you said I agree with, except the conclusion from that. The reason that's completely different is what I was talking about is a change in behavior, a change in ideology. What you're talking about is human nature. People are lazy. That's why they keep updating the app so that as soon as your trip finishes, it's right there. They're trying to change.
Well, you're not going to change anybody by calling them lazy, Curtis.
Well, hey, a lazy American.
People know now that you call people lazy.
I'm talking to you. I'm not talking to someone who disagrees with me. Again, I mean, it would be very difficult to convince me that those people who didn't vote for you, the vast majority of them disliked you or hated you. You didn't have anything to change except personal behavior and being lazy and going with the app, okay? If they couldn't get out the door without hitting that thing, or if they got $1 back for rating, you would get 100, and they would, but if they hated you, they would get out and say, I hated this effing person. Plus, I hate the fact that I had to give him a rating to get out the hell out of his car. So but I will tell you this, as an Uber driver, your conversations, and specifically you and a subset of other Uber drivers, in those conversations, more so than this live stream or Jimmy Dore, you have changed people's ideologies, beliefs, not only about Uber drivers, but about maybe comics or comedians, about married people, about progressives, whatever you two were discussing, that had a more lasting, I'm not denigrating anything that we do or anything, but that had a organic going, Every time some Yahoo gets in the Uber with a black driver, an Uber driver, they leave somehow going, And it's almost racist. Oh, this person speaks well. This person's great. I was a little worried about the way he was dressed, but he was completely friendly. That is an electric moment that means something to them and has an impact on a lot of people. But hey, am I going to rate that all the time? No, I rate all the time. Not all the time. Sometimes my battery's dead, but I come back later and can do it. But that's just but so you see my point.
But I could go further with the Uber driving thing, which I didn't want to do. But it also comes down to tipping. And, when you're with very rich, wealthy people and they don't tip and they know what a ride from the airport costs. They know what normal, that you always get tipped when I'm not a wealthy guy and I don't travel. I'm not a savvy traveler, but I sure know you're supposed to tip most during your travel. You should be thinking about who you're tipping, who you're not tipping. Well, the guy who drives you back and forth to the airport, if he's taking your bags out, he gets you there safe and there's a safe drive, there's got to be a tip involved. Well, I'm telling you, Uber people do not tip at all. They don't. It's almost like zero.
Yeah.
Lyft's a little bit better. So
You're
again,
right.
They're getting to know me. We're talking. Sometimes I'll do experiments. I'll tell them my whole financial picture. I'll lay it out there. You do different conversations just to test to see what's going on. And when it's 0%, and I'm talking about savvy travelers. I'm talking about very, very wealthy people. It's disconcerting. It's like, whoa, we're in a lot of trouble.
But you're proving my point here. You really are, because I'm that mythical wealthy billionaire in your Uber, right? And I'm not tipping. Well, why is that? I could buy this entire car you're in, because that's behavior. That's not a change in ideology. So that is, hey, I started with Uber. I never had to tip before. In fact, they told me never tip. You don't have to. That's one of the reasons I chose Uber. I don't have to worry about that. Or I'm like, hey, I made my money, so why am I going to tip you? Work, bastard. I got $1 billion. I had to, So different psychologies, so much so that many progressive organizations are like, look, people just don't like to tip. It doesn't matter if they have $5 million or $5. So you know what we're going to do? We're going to get off our asses and we're going to give them a decent wage. And we're going to build it into their wages. So a lot of the companies now are excluding tipping, and there's still some controversy on that, and increasing individual salaries. But Americans have already been I tip all the time. In fact, I always tip 20% over, to ask any of my friends, even if I have a bad experience, because I'll often tip more for a bad experience and let them know I will never be returning. And you lost a good customer because of this experience, because this is what I tip, but I won't be back. And so I agree with what you're saying, but what I'm saying is that Americans have been trained to be assholes, to compete against.
Yeah, but I disagree, because if you're a savvy traveler,
you're different. Again, you're nice, and you're good, you're kind. That's not an average American.
But
you're a genius. Remember
that could be true.
It's true. You're forgetting most people aren't like you.
If you're a president of a bank, or you're a banker, or you're a financier, or you're somebody who's obviously very wealthy, you've been traveling for 20 years, your whole life. Now you're traveling in the car with a guy who's me, very cordial, can carry on a conversation, blah, blah, blah. You get out of the car, you get your bags, drive away, no tip. I'm like, that guy knows that he what he did was completely wrong, and he was cold-blooded, and he was like, no, you're not getting a tip.
Yeah.
Whether it be cash or on the app. So, I mean, I'm just saying, I've met these people. I know what's out there. It scares me to know what I know. You know what I'm saying? I've now done a sample research. It scares me. It's what I thought, but it's way worse.
That's what I'm saying. You already know this. You already know that and I'm not making you Superman, but a lot of I know gazillions of awesome people. And the reason I'm friends with these awesome people is because they're awesome. And not for a second do I think they're normal and unspecial and not unique and not hilarious and not intelligent. Not in a second do I think they represent the commonality of most people, let alone most Americans. They're special. And there are great people, and then there are special people, and there are unique people. But the last thing I'm thinking when I meet someone is that I bet this person's awesome. This random person in America is just going to be awesome. I think there are a lot of nice people. I think there are a lot of people who would treat me kindly. But I don't think the average person is... I mean, I think the average person presents themselves as nice. But right. I don't think... It's just like I think the average guy is probably an asshole. And, you know, treating women wrong. I mean, that's what they've been trained, right? So, and I could probably like the guy. I could probably have a beer with the dude, have a conversation. But I'm thinking, he's probably an asshole. So, you're just confirming, like you said, what you already know about human nature, about people. These people can buy your car.
But I really didn't know it was that bad. I really didn't know because from my side, and again, I'm not a savvy traveler, right? So you probably have traveled way more in your life, and so have these guys, right? So I know they know what the cost was from a ride from where they're home or from the airport to their home or home to the airport. They know what the cost was for that was throughout their careers. They also know what it costs to house a car or park it in the parking lot and then pick it up after you've done your trip, right? They also know throughout time that you always gave a cash tip, right? When you walked out of the car, the guy gave you bags, here's your $5 or whatever, you move on your way. So now, like you said, there's been a disruption in the model, and now they can get away with not having that guilt. And it does speak to the gig economy, which there was an article about that where they're saying that where even the people who are creating the gig economy were saying this could be very bad, for society as a whole. Curtis is going to make me keep talking. So I didn't want to reveal that, only because speaking at a school, but a lot of people who make this money and don't tip. I feel like it shows that maybe they don't care, and it speaks to a larger problem. And again, where this gig economy is going and how it's disrupting the model, and we might have more and more of that behavior. And you see articles of it, and I can only tell you from my experience. But I'm shocked at the sample size and what I've seen. I don't know how. Like I said, the only way I imagined people who were Uber drivers who could make a living was through tips. Like if you were getting tips, then I could say, okay, you might be able to make a living doing this. It might be possible. So I don't know if these poor guys have to put signs on the back of their seats that say like, please cash tip me. I don't know if they have to like a woe is me story while I drive the person, so.
Well, I mean, I just want to say, because I often play devil's advocate, and so I don't want to seem like I'm countering you or anything. I always want to understand why people do things, but I agree with everything you're saying, and people have been indoctrinated, because if I understand the source, then I think there's a way to counter that, right? And so this population has already been indoctrinated to not pay. And then, so psychologically, people are always looking for an out. How can I save money? We live in a country where people are trying to save money because they're not 1%, right? So from a psychological standpoint, they're not going from having more money and then making more money. Psychologically, I'm not defending this. I'm explaining it. they're going from I'm saving money and then now I'm supposed to tip, And again, I always tip over 20%. So that's what I would hope people would do. But they're going from I'm spending less to more. Their psychological, natural, organic reaction is, no, I'm not going to do this. And then they're thinking about their kids. I'm not talking about the wealthy people. That's a different psychology. That's about something else. But they're going.
Yeah, but the other side I would tell you is the hardest working, the blue collar, the poorest people are the ones that are going to tip.
Absolutely.
So
that's
the ones
my
that
point.
Understand, but so it's really disheartening when you
shared
people
experience.
Are tipping. But I think,
and I hear that all the time. It's the people who make the less will tip the most and the most because it's personal, and they're like, I know what you're doing. But the psychology of the average writer is going to be like, oh, Uber's trying to get, I'm already paying this. I'm already, I got my 3 kids. So everybody brings their own personal thing because they don't have that sort of socialist mindset where we want everyone to, but if you want hope, remember, the younger you get, then the more sort of support you're going to have in terms of, I'm learning what's right. I have less baggage.
Well, I don't know. I think the technology doesn't teach that. I think it's teaching the opposite.
Technology doesn't teach that. You're right.
No, the disruption models of the gig economy is. I was using the wrong words. I think that the fear is that more and more of this is going to happen, and there's going to be more and more of that attitude, whatever that attitude is. Which, like I said, I never expected to experience what I'm experiencing because I know I've told you this joke before, but I talked to somebody. I was talking to a physics teacher at Thanksgiving one time, and he said, with Uber,
as one is prone to do.
What do you make a mile driving with Uber? And I was like, well, if I knew that, I wouldn't be driving for Uber. Right? If I was that intelligent and I could crack numbers like that, buddy, I'm not going to be driving for Uber. So I just wasn't expecting what I'm experiencing. It told me there's a way bigger problem than anybody could understand, and you could only understand there by doing this sample and doing this job and understanding. And like you said, you can try different methods.
I think can
I be nicer? What do I bring up? Like just as an experiment, like what do I talk about? I've given people my full financial picture. I've given them down to the dollar. I've told them exactly what I make, what do I have in the bank, where no tip. And just as an experiment, and again, I don't even care about
that. That won't work psychologically because they become self-aware in on the joke and they feel that sort of guilt.
This guy, I don't.
I'm talking about if you.
There was no joke. I was just having a conversation. This guy was getting a new job with E-Trade, and we were talking about that. And I was like, so I just pretended that we were talking about. And at the same time, getting his advice, as far as investing, gave my full financial picture. Got out, seemed like a pretty, a guy that would be the guy. Like, oh, that guy. I probably reached him. He seemed like a really cool guy. No, so I mean,
no shared experience. I mean, you already answered your question. If the blue collar people are the ones who are tipping frequently and more, which is what I hear all the time, you can extrapolate from that. The most wealthy people are not because of something I said an hour ago about they don't have that personal experience. Logically, on paper, we go rich, pay more. But that's logic. Emotionally and psychologically, organically, these people are disconnected from other people. And sometimes in a sort of evil way, but most often in just an environmental way.
But I agree with all that. We can discuss all the reasons why it occurs. And all I'm saying to you is it's a way bigger problem than what maybe me and you thought it was. Like maybe you don't think it's that big of a problem.
No, I do think it's a big problem. But
I always thought we have a problem in America. Like there's an issue. Like now I'm like, oh my God, it's way worse than I thought. And there's no, we can both sit there and go, oh, we can talk to each person and slowly change everything. And I'm going to tell you again, we don't have the troops to do that. We don't have the time nor the troops.
We do have the troops. Here's why we have the troops.
And most of them are wacky.
No, here's
most of them are talking about false flags.
Here's why we have the troops. We don't have the troops if we're relying on the superheroes in the silos. That's the Bill Gates.
Wasn't that the name of your first album? Superheroes and Silos? All right, go ahead.
It was actually Silos and Superheroes, but it was
excuse me, apologize.
It was actually R-rated. But the Bill Gates sort of solution, which is what a lot of people have, I'm not so sure is going to work. And that is one person, metaphorically, going, here's $1,000 trillion and I will fix everything. I don't think anything's ever worked that way. I don't think anything has ever worked that way. I think, like Bernie Sanders says, it's millions of people rising up. Here's 5, here's 10, and I'm not even meaning that literally, like a dot. But it takes one person going to another one person, not one person going trillion, and you change that. You give $1 here, you give an idea here, you give that. And then it rises up to such a level because we can't, the 1% is not going to take care of the 99%. Anyone who thinks that is, well, you're going to die unhappy. That will never happen. And it has never happened with slavery or anything else. What happens is the 99% sort of rise up, metaphorically speaking. And then the 1% goes, okay, F it. Let's do Social Security. Let's do this. I want to get elected. Everybody's yapping. Let's just do it. Right? But if everybody doesn't do that sort of rise up action, they're not going to tip the scale because ultimately they don't want sort of like a metaphorical riot. So we do have the numbers by people sort of going to your, goofy right-wing psychotic sister and going, what the hell? What's going on with this? And then she goes, okay, maybe I need to take that down. Because that is a easy virus to spread. And I don't think you need to drive Uber to sense how bad things are. Because people who don't drive for Uber know someone who drives for Uber. I have so many people who I know drive for Uber in so many different areas. Just like dating apps, just like Tinder. How many people are on Tinder? These are things that no one knows about that everyone's doing. It's just presentation. It's Facebook culture. We all know someone who's in jail or went to jail or did a crime or something, but you don't go to a party and talk about it. So people who even aren't driving know because they go, gosh, everybody's driving for Uber. And then other people don't know that they're driving for Uber. So we get it. We the 99% get it. Bernie was a lightning rod to tell us, and people forget this, right? Bernie was a lightning rod to tell us to sort of get off our asses and do this. He never one day said, I'm going to take care of this. Not for one day. He never said, I'm going to become president and I'm going to fix this all up. He said, I'm going to tell you again, and you better listen to me this time, because I've been saying this for the last 18,000 decades. I need y'all to get off your asses, millions of you, rise up, because that's the only way they're going to do it. And everyone knows that. And so we forget that. We forget that our change is what will end the Holocaust, will end slavery, will get gay people married. It was not someone sitting in an office going, let's just do this. It was always us.
And I would say, no way. I would say, first of all, they'll stop you if they have to. They will find a way to stop the change that you're trying to make. Whether it's by, and this is conspiratorial, whether it's by killing you, maiming you, shutting you down.
How did we get these changes then?
Charging. I told you.
Slavery. Gay marriage, women voting.
Very, 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 very slow process.
It's a slow process, but how did these happen? Because a politician was like, these dumb assholes in the country, let's just go ahead and do this. No, push came to shove because we forced them to make these changes. We are still alive today, and everybody alive today remembers the day before. Remembers the day before legalized marriage, right? and I know we're still battling, and it's all that kind of stuff, but we remember it was like, when did this happen? What the hell just happened? Because this was never going to happen, right? So I imagine that's what it felt like with slavery.
We're not on the path of change right now. Income inequality is increasing. Every time that Bernie has to make a statement about income equality, he has to up his little percentage point to it's worsening. So it's not going in the direction that we want it to go, and it's not changing. It's getting worse, and that's why Uber becomes a disruption model, and people become desperate enough to use that model because they're in a bad place. They have to go to the gig economy to use it.
Well, it's not becoming worse. It's becoming different. It's like slavery. Like, we don't have slavery anymore, but did that abolish racism? On paper, it abolished racism. On paper, it abolished racism, right? No, it just ended slavery. And racism still exists. So it's not getting worse in so much it's changing its form, it's changing its shape, because there's always a different angle. There's always, let's hire this guy because he doesn't look thuggy, so he's a good one. Let's put black people in commercials with the Asian. Let's put one gay guy in there, maybe one transgender person. So it's always that sort of thing. But at least not everybody's getting thrown out back and beaten to a pulp. So yeah, it takes a long time, but it doesn't change like that. It changes, right? You can attribute so many changes just by sort of media representation. It happens in media first, and then people go, "Oh, I see it. It's not so bad," and then they start making things, right? You could talk about, what was that show? Straight guy for the straight clothes for the gay guy, whatever. You know what I'm talking about. I'll let you stumble on that one, because I'm not going to say something inappropriate. Yeah, well, people
Queer eye for the straight guy.
People who were conservative and religious and everything else were watching. That was the title. Thank you, and they remade it on Netflix. And so many people who were very.
You should watch it more.
I like this shirt, damn it. So people got so comfortable with these almost forced images upon them. They were like, I got used to it, and so, but that came years before any national legalized law, right? It's a slow process, but every day is a change.
I'm still not going to sleep well tonight. Nothing you said has changed
what I know
from my sample of research, from what we've experienced together. We've experienced some of the. Has there been a time? Can we think about understanding that the DNC rigged an election? Can we think as how just devastating that is?
That's a good example.
Your grasp of reality. You know what I'm saying? You have to wrap your head around.
That's a great example. That's a great example. Again, before people discovered that, it wasn't that they discovered oil for the first time, or that they discovered, America with people living on it. That's the way it was. They discovered America with people living on it. That is the way it's always been. What 2016 did was educate far more people that, hey, this is the way it's always been, which is a change. It didn't get rid of it, but it's a positive change, because now at least people aren't walking around and living in a non-reality. That
is bullshit. That is bullshit, because most Americans, they watch the MSNBC and they don't know the Russians did you a favor, but you don't know that. You talk so much shit, but you do not know we did you big favor, show you DNC very dirty, but you don't listen. And Trump is a good man. He's a very good man.
Well, I don't know if they would say he's a good man.
He's not as good as Putin, but he's a very good man. He's a very good man.
What you're getting into is by the way, very good Russian. I enjoyed that very much.
That's bullshit. You don't mean that.
You bullshit. I can't do Russian.
I can tell.
I cannot do Russian.
Don't talk to me like that.
You a silly man.
I might be not from here, but you not talk to me like that.
You silly man. You silly man, which you're not. But yeah, this is why you have a lot of progressives who want anarchy, right? They want because that is they want to speed up the time it takes for change to happen. You want to take over things that have a revolution that is literally a revolution.
I always feel like when you're talking about that little tiny world that we were in a year ago, 2 years ago.
Well, that's
we lived on this little tiny weird planet.
We did.
Nobody else knows what you're talking about. I mean, I know what you're talking about, but
no,
you're talking about a tiny planet we were on.
It's no
all
different.
These weird tiny people, and we're not on that planet. We're free. We flew off.
We still
we're
are.
Okay, Curtis. We flew off.
We still are on that planet. Like.
No, don't say that. How dare you?
Well, we are. I mean, think about like
it's a very small tiny planet of progressives and left weird.
That's what people don't. That's what people don't accept. Is that like the what's his name? BenShapiro. We have no idea about his experience. He has no idea. No. I don't mean his history, his biography.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Like his experience.
Defend BenShapiro, even though you know that really makes me unhinged.
He does.
Ahead.
Oh, I'm not defending him, but he.
I know.
He, he has no contact with our whole 2016 experience. His experience in 2016 was completely different.
I had experience. They're all dumb. They're all idiots. They're all left-wing wacko idiots. All of them.
Exactly,
you know it, Curtis.
And they never tasted any of that. They never saw any of that. But he had a whole different experience, and he's completely swimming in it. And he has zero perspective of our silo. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't really know what's changed other than
but I look at BenShapiro and I weigh it differently. I think he's unauthentic. He's a liar. He's a guy who, and I don't want to use the words that people normally use, but people see a way to make money. He sees a way to talk, that he can do a certain way to talk and make money, and he's smart enough to use the avenues. I don't even know if he really believes in what he believes. I mean, who knows? He can come out tomorrow and he could be, he could be seeing prostitutes, or he could, I don't know. I don't know what horrible thing he has in his closet, right? That's going to come out in the next, because he's just a huge hypocrite, right? There's something.
I do suspect something will come out of some closet.
Exactly. No, I don't want to say that. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying he might. I'm sure he's got a bag full of bones in his hypocritical closet, which they all do, and that's the whole.
I do believe his back has bones as well.
God willing.
Yeah.
But I'm just.
Well, he does. He does. They all do.
I just don't agree with the. And I love that you're being hopeful, and people hear this and go, "Oh!" I think that's almost the worst thing you can do, is to make people hopeful, because I think this is not a time for hope. I think this is a time for. I don't know, man.
I'm not trying to be hopeful. In fact, I think I'm being extremely negative, because I think I'm saying it takes time, and that you're probably going to die before you reap the benefits. The reason I say that is because we have hundreds of years of that always being the case. You die, and until you map that dot of actual change progressing like a lightning bolt. That's hey, I can vote now. I'm a woman. I'm a free person as a black person. Those are like boom, long time, then a boom. But in between those dots, it was never ever has been historically a hyper jump from that point. And so I thought negative in a sense, because I'm realistic in that change happens. All old people die. All young people replace them. All the young people are smarter and brighter and less assholes than the prior generation. And they go, hey, I have no hate for black people. I don't know where that was historically. So to me, I see it as a scientific inevitability. It'll get better. It's just, will it happen in 2 years, or if Bernie runs and gets elected? No. But will that be part of that incremental change? Abso-fucking-lutely. So I think Trump was the best thing that ever happened, because he lulled people out of their slumber and go, oh, we need shit to do. There's shit we got to get do. Otherwise, we would have been like, oh, okay, Hillary's good. I hope she beats Jeb Bush. I really think I hope Hillary beats Jeb. So Trump comes along and people are going, whoa. So I think we got a hyper jump. I think Bernie was a weird, freaky, jump.
But again, I don't know. I just sit there and go, my God. he's going to put 2 Supreme Court justices. Who knows how they're going to fuck with the law? We don't know how long this is actually going to be send us in the wrong direction. I don't know. I don't see what I saw with the Bernie Sanders movement. It was the only time in my life that occurred. So again, it's all new to me. And then to watch this fade out period, and to know that it's August, and to know that these midterm elections come around the corner, and to know that, again, I just feel that recurring lull. And yeah, you're talking about incremental change, but in the meantime, again, people are becoming poorer. Kids are becoming poorer. There is a sliding effect. Me and you, we can talk like, hey, things are pretty rosy. I've got a big giant house. You've got your nice little backdrop over there. You got your vegan shirt. But I mean, there's so much suffering in this country alone.
It is a nice backdrop and shirt.
And it's hard to imagine there will be. I can't imagine anything that's going to happen that's going to. I'm with you with the Trump thing, but not enough people realize, again, like when people talk about it's a republic, it's like, well, you don't understand what a republic means. It's not a good system. Electoral college doesn't work anymore. They run it as a game board. It's a boxed game. They take it out and go, okay, how many states do we have to win?
Billionaires are not sitting on their asses and going, let's see what happens. Who knows what's going to happen? Hey, I hope we get lucky this year. Of course. So they're moving
levers.
They're controlling the game. Who would think? That's, there's conspiracies, right? Which are nuts. But then there's just, come on. I have multi-billions of dollars. Hope my businesses gets lucky. Hope I don't have to pay more taxes. That's not happening. All right, so you're lobbying, you're paying off people, you got lawyers, you got offshore accounts. You're doing what a billionaire would do, which is not sit on his ass, roll the dice, and hope that his whole entire world changes. So that's not conspiracy. That's, hey, you protect your shit. So, yeah, that's just a reality. And the best thing people can do who feel completely hopeless is to change your world. Okay, if you have kids, don't raise racists, don't raise Nazis. Right? I'm being a little facetious, but it's true.
Well, look, I'll go a little bit further. You should play that bit about because I'll take us to somewhere that we need to go in a different, because like I said, we can run around and chase our tails. And so I want to bring up something that's really politically incorrect that I always bring up with people, and it's similar to the bit that you sent me to Steve Hofstetter talking about people having too many kids. Well, I often say, because we've talked sometimes about having politically totally incorrect ideas in my head, and I always bring them up because I like to bring them up to see people's reactions. So one of my things,
truth is truth.
It's gonna definitely go, oh my God, because this is the reaction I always get. So I always had an idea about when people have their income cannot support above their children, that somehow we have to control the amount or their ability to have children at that point.
Right.
So I've often talked about providing them with, free birth control, or, going as far as having them come in monthly to make sure everything is okay with their levels and that maybe they're not able to produce children. So when I tell people about these ideas, they're just like, oh my God, you can't do that. That is so wrong. I'm like, well, it just seems logical to me that if they don't have the means to raise children, we really don't want them getting pregnant to have more children. But when you tell people that, they're just like, you can't do that. I'm like, well, to me, it makes sense for the children. No, but that's freedom, man. You're taking away people's freedom. I go, yeah, but at the same time.
Well, there's a whole movement. There's what is it called? Anti-natalism. It's a movement of people who are like,
I never heard of that. Yeah, I never heard of
that
term.
Stop producing children, and they are like, they hate babies.
Wow, that's so funny. Well, I'm not that funny.
I know, but it's a real movement.
People are like, you can't get the government involved in people stopping them from having kids. I'm like, I know, but doesn't it make logical sense if you said, okay, if you get yourself together, you get a better job, then maybe we'll consider, you can have your fourth child. But right now,
here's how they describe it. They say, I don't know if I'm even pronouncing it right, but anti-natalism is a philosophical position that assigns a negative value to birth
No, that's not what
I know you're not. I know you're not, but I wanted to, sort of the movement behind that. Anti-natalists argue that people should refrain from procreation because it is morally bad. Some also recognize procreation of other sentient beings as morally bad. In scholarly,
there is a group for everything, man. I mean, you can bring up anything. I didn't see it, but I never even heard of this.
I know.
Term.
You know where I learned this? Is where I learn everything online. I found a group, and I'm fascinated by these people, and they are the most. I shouldn't say the most, but they're as
you know what's so funny? I have to start
every other group.
I have to start doing what you're doing. Like, I have to start looking for a group that says like I've completely given up and just go.
Yeah,
I've given up politically, and just go there and just hang out and talk because it would probably be fun and you probably like. Could you imagine going somewhere where everybody says, like, I've just given up politically? All right, let's talk about something.
Well, you did. Remember that TED Talk you watched with the black guy who infiltrated some of the neo-Nazi groups and et cetera?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's sort of like that. I learned so much from, people who are just on a different spectrum. I'm like, oh, I get why they're that way, right? I already know why people, on my side, and you learn so many different layers, not things that make you go, oh, I agree with you, but you're like, oh, it wasn't so, it was like so many people entered from a different standpoint, and then they just got like indoctrinated.
But I feel like whatever I feel like each day, like if I feel a certain way each day, I should just go and look for a group that how I'm feeling, and then I'll feel more comfortable with the way I feel. You know what I'm saying? Because I go through all these different weird moods and feelings of what I, and then you go and you just get supported and you move on with your day. Maybe that's my problem. I need to get more group help.
Well, that's Facebook.
I don't even think that way, right? Because I just want to live inside myself, and I want to suffer within myself, and I want to get through this thing on my own. I don't have to anymore. I can there's a group for everything. What's wrong with me?
It's free. It's free counseling. It's free counseling.
I need a haircut group. I need a haircut, but I can't get there. I just can't do it. There's got to be a group for that. Let me go talk and see if they can get somebody to the house.
I don't know how many members are there, but that group exists.
Doesn't matter, right? Doesn't matter.
All it needs is be one, or two.
One to talk to. We'll talk me down.
And they're all there.
The process.
Well, let me do this. It's coming up to 3.5 hours here. I'm not.
My wife did come up in the middle, so it was just like I'm sure she's ready to blow my spot up. So
I'm not sure that the even beginning. I think I might have had the audio wrong in the beginning, but I want to go back as I always do to some of your earlier wisdom to end on that. Unless you have any closing thoughts, and it's
God, did I have some wisdom? I want to hear it myself.
You always have wisdom.
I can't believe it.
It's you were talking about. We were talking about. Comedians are writers, and you have people with agendas that will tell you that they're not writers because they're just trying to break your spirit, or they're just ignorant, or a combination of both. So I thought it'd be great to end here with Jerry Seinfeld talking about the construction of a joke, and then we'll go from there.
All right, let me see it.
Let's do it. Hey, Dad.
I know you think people are going to be interested in this, but they're not. I've probably been working on this for 2 years. 2 years? I mean, usually I write a bit in a couple of days. It's a long time to spend on something that means absolutely nothing. But that's what I do. That's what people want me to do, is spend a lot of time wastefully, so that then I can then waste their time. Comedy writing is something you don't see people doing. It's a secretive thing. I've never shown anybody this stuff. I feel a little funny about it right now, to tell you the truth. In comedy, what you do is you think of something that you think is funny, and then you go from there. It's a fun thing to say, Pop-Tart. I like the first line to be funny right away. when I was a kid and they invented the Pop-Tart, the back of my head blew right off. And that got the whole thing started, that a specific part of my head blew off. Not just my head, but just the back. It was the 60s and we had toast. We had orange juice that was frozen years in advance that you had to hack away at with a knife to get a couple of drops, and it felt like you were committing a murder before you got on your school bus. Then I talk about shredded wheat, which was like wrapping your lips around a wood chipper. You have breakfast, and then you had to take 2 days off for the scars to heal so you could speak again.
You always write on...
Always, yeah.
Have you ever tried to...
No. I don't like that cursor flashing, looking at me like, so? What do you got?
Do you have a special pen?
Mm-hmm. Yes, the Bic Clear Barrel Blue, which I wrote every episode of Seinfeld, the TV series, with that pen. Larry and I used to write them longhand. Oh, because you can't be in this? Oh, that's a drag. That was good timing. So, in the midst of that dark and hopeless moment, the Pop-Tart suddenly appeared in the supermarket, and we just stared at it like an alien spacecraft, and we were like chimps in the dirt playing with sticks. What makes that joke is you got chimps, dirt, playing, and sticks. In 7 words, 4 of them are funny. Chimps are funny. Then there's the trying to figure out as a kid, how did they know that there would be a need for a frosted fruit-filled heatable rectangle in the same shape as the box it comes in and with the same nutrition as the box it comes in? In the midst of that darkness and hopelessness, the Kellogg's Pop-Tart appears. And they always laugh there because that indicates, oh, he's telling us a story. And then my next joke that I want to get to is chimps in the dirt with sticks. So now I'm looking for the connective tissue that gives me the really tight, smooth link, like a jigsaw puzzle link. And if it's too long, if it's just a split second too long, you will shave letters off of words. You count syllables, to get it just, it's more like songwriting. Then I had to figure out how to end the thing, and that's the hardest part. If you have a long bit, the biggest laugh has to be at the end. It has to be. It can't be in the middle or the beginning. And this was very daunting. Once this Pop-Tart had come into the world, I didn't understand why we were still eating other kinds of food. Because this seemed to be definitely the new way. 2 in the packet and 2 slots in the toaster. Why 2? 1's not enough, 3's too many. And they can't go stale because they were never fresh. They can't go stale because they were never fresh. That took a long time. And I know it sounds like nothing. And it is nothing. In my world, the wronger something feels, the righter it is. So to waste this much time on something this stupid that felt good to me. It's the exact opposite of what we do here at the Times. Which is we spend appropriate amounts of time on deserving subjects. So I'm the exact opposite of that. Inappropriate and undeserving subjects.
This just... Okay. You, sir, are a writer. So we shall...
Aww.
Isn't that sweet?
Oh, look at me. Look at me. I'm just doing comedy over here. I'm just dropping stuff.
Yeah, and you're like you're playing a tipping a hat to the classic comedians, the Keystone Cops and all of them.
Hold on now.
So, yeah, I think we got video. All right, sir, I will let you have the closing words.
Well,
if there's anything else lingering on your mind, by all means.
Well, you played that clip. I gotta talk about that clip.
Go for it.
Well,
you're the expert.
You're the resident that Jerry Seinfeld it does suffer from OCD, and it really helps him. It definitely feels like very OCD, right? So, like, if there's anything wrong with Jerry Seinfeld besides being a narcissist, is OCD, and it is really difficult what he does as far as writing jokes, because there is easy ways out and there's hard ways out. So he's able to get a lot of stage time to really hash out material that's really difficult to do. So it's very difficult to become a comedian because this guy gets stage time wherever he wants, whenever he wants. So being so old and getting stage time helps him to maintain his materials. The word I'm looking for, it's not credibility, but that it's good stuff usually.
Yeah.
But the thing about Jerry Seinfeld, and you were sending me different comedians that you like: Norm Macdonald, Bill Burr. Norm Macdonald, Bill Burr, and somebody else. Louis C.K. I think you might have thrown in there, but I'm not sure. But it doesn't matter.
Back in the day, yeah.
Back in the day,
Chris Rock, Dave Chappelle.
Well, they all have distinct comedy voices. So when they speak, to me, when Jerry speaks, even when he's just explaining, it's kind of sort of funny. Even when he's even just talking about writing a job about a Pop-Tart, something about the way he says his words, it's funny. Some people just have that gift. It's a really difficult thing to do and feel good about. So I'll tell you, I'll do a joke for you right now that I'm working on that just popped in my head, and I'll deconstruct it at the same time. So, because one of the things is like, working with you, whenever I should tell you when I'm about to do something that I need help with, or that I need you to tag on to this, because joke writing is good if you have somebody else there who's like, okay, but you should go here, or why didn't you try this direction? This joke's a little bit, and I'll tell you what's wrong with this joke and why it won't maintain. So one of the jokes that I have is...
I have some feedback for you, sir. I'm talking to an imaginary person. You should completely get out of comedy. All right.
When you do jokes, a lot of times when you're doing an audience, you're doing it in front of an audience, you want them to have some sort of connection with you, that you want them to get to know you right away. So one of the jokes I wanted to do is that my wife is from Trinidad, and she's Indian. But the thing about being Trini from Indian is that most people from India don't believe that Trinis are Indian. So if you try to score points with them, they will be immediately like, oh no, but she is not Indian from the proper, she was once from India, but now she is not from there, she is from Trinidad. And that is completely different. That is, these people, they dance and they move their buttocks and they curse way too much and they drink too much. Oh, trust me, they are not Indian. And this guy never said that. That's just me talking and adding an Indian accent. And I got to apologize because all of that you shouldn't, because doing an Indian accent, you already get laughs for doing. Like, if you do a Russian voice, if you do an Indian voice, people are already going to laugh. Now you're afraid, are they laughing because they're racist, or is it because you're talented and you can do voices? So in your head you have to. And so, it's as a comedian, first of all, most people would say, dude, don't do it. You can't. Indian accent, that's hack. Everybody does them. It's an easy laugh. So again, like, I just wrote this joke, basically, telling them about my wife and that I'm married and my wife is Indian, and then, doing this joke with the tags and then saying, okay, that guy never said that. That's just me talking in an Indian accent. And
aren't you worried about in this, I mean, we're really sort of in a post-PC culture.
Oh, absolutely.
So super sensitive. Where if you're not Indian, you're only someone with an Indian accent can
is allowed to do that voice.
Which would make me just want to, right? Because I'm like, I don't want to follow that. So, how do you even balance that or tackle that?
Definitely. There's just a concern. You're absolutely like, who would want you to do that? You'd have to be an established comic where it's okay to do that. Robin Williams, who died today. Or yesterday now, I guess it's past the time, who died yesterday, he was a master at voices, but he would do black people and he would do Chinese people, but he got a pass, right? Because he was just super talented and there was a twinkle in his eye. There's not too many other people who do it. I was going to bring up Will Ferrell. No, he doesn't really do voices.
Don Rickles also. He did
right,
it.
He did
in
some terrible.
A
lot of people. So it's definitely in this culture. It's definitely. I mean, when I wrote that joke, when I thought of that joke, I was like, oh, it's hack. I know doing an Indian voice gets you a laugh anyway. It's problematic because you never know what's considered right or wrong in the world of comedy. And that's why it goes back to guys who get all upset about hate speech and talk about freedom of speech because they don't like to be. What was that? That was a rim shot? You're doing? But comedy writing is a lot easier when you can get lots of stage time anytime for as long as you'd like. I'm not saying that Jerry Seinfeld isn't a great comic, but joke writing is very specific, and a lot of guys who were really crafted do put that kind of work in. It's hard for me because it's boring, and I also evaluate, and it's hard for me to sit there and go to feel good about what I write. So again, that's a real problem with me, is feeling good about what I write. And it could be because, again, I've come in and out of the business, and you're learning the tricks, and you're using too many tricks to get over. You're understanding the game, and what you should be doing is developing an act that's sellable, that you can just go from place to place and eventually get on TV. And you sort of have to have a real discipline. And like guys like Gaffigan had that, and Teddy Alexandro, people really knew the game. The game is get your 5 minutes, get your 10 minutes, get your 15 minutes, make sure it's strong and clean. That game has changed a little bit, obviously. Now I don't even know what the game is, but back then that was the game. And you had to be tough, which means you had to go in there and know that most of the time your act was probably going to bomb until it really got good and structured. So you're going to go over and bomb and bomb and bomb, and you have to push for stage time while you're bombing and try to do your other. It's really, really difficult. So joke writing is lonely. It feels weird. You feel crazy doing it. That's why I always wanted to be a comedy writer where you sat around in a room with a bunch of guys. But the problem with that was when I got into comedy, I was like, oh man, I don't even like other comics. Like I thought for sure when I got there, I was going to be like, oh, I'm in the same field with everybody else. I love these guys. And as soon as I got in, I was like, I don't like these guys either. I don't know where I belong. So I would love to work for a really good show and just be like a joke writer and do it that way and like tag on or whatever. It just never felt fulfilling. But I think you have to have, it goes back to being a really good fighter, really good comic writer. I think it takes huge ego. And if you don't possess a huge ego, you're going to struggle. You're going to really struggle because you need that huge ego to survive. And we've talked about this a long time ago in fighting. So I mean that's how my words of wisdom. I don't know what kind of wisdom is, but that was the newest joke that I thought of, and I was like, that's a worrisome joke. It's hack. It does open the door for me to talk about.
I just think your biggest hurdle would be the accent, and I don't say that with any sort of warning or admonishing, because if someone tells me I can't do anything, then it makes me want to do it more. So when I heard that, I'm like, the people are going to be like, oh, there's an Indian. Because they're racist. I don't want to say they're racist, but you know what I mean? Can we do this? And I'm like, well, are you racist? Am I racist? So I just wonder, though, how much of that external influence, I know you would think about it and care about it, but would it prevent you from doing the joke?
I would say,
and there's no right or wrong answer. I'm just
in the comedy world, in the comedy club, that joke is almost always going to work. That joke I just wrote, and that's how I know that's like a 90% success rate, because once you do an Indian accent, if you have the talent to do any accent, people just like it. That you're able to go up there. I did Russian before. If you can go into 3 different voices in a 2 or 3 minute, people will just see that as a talent. So they're just impressed by the talent. It's like memorizing something and then doing it. People do the same thing, right? If you get on stage and you memorize something, people will applaud. It's weird. So again, it just so happened that the idea popped in my head after an incident where somebody sort of made those comments about the difference between Indian and Trini, but I take it to just really just being I'm just going to take it to where I just make, every time I'm going to do it for my own enjoyment, I'm just going to make it more and more ridiculous about whatever they're saying about people from Trini, and then I'm going to say, no, that person never said. That's just me talking in an Indian accent. So that's the punchline.
Right.
So you're just saying anything new that popped in my head. There's other stuff that popped in my head, like jokes, but to build them completely, nothing. Like I don't have a joke start to finish where I'm like, that's successful, I can do that. But with that one, I'm like, that's going to work. But in my heart, like you said, for the right reasons, is it acceptable? Blah blah blah. You have to weigh all those things, and that's the problem between doing Pop-Tarts. You know what I'm saying? So if you write a joke about a Pop-Tart, you're going to be safe. No one's going to get mad at you for making fun of a Pop-Tart. So again, he's genius in that he knows that within joke writing, if you keep it real safe, there's so much more money in it. If you can be clean and safe, there's so much more money in that. That's what America likes. That's what most people like, is safe and clean.
Yeah, but still, is Chappelle safe and clean? Is Chris Rock safe and clean? Was Richard Pryor safe and clean? sort of
Well,
takes.
Chappelle was lucky; he went to Comedy Central.
Yeah.
Rock has never transferred, right? He's always struggled to transfer in big movies, and he's not going to go TV. So
That's
he's
true,
always,
but he's considered, a big, comic name. He's well respected, and it sort of begs the question: like, was Andrew Dice Clay funny?
Well, that's if you're going to bring up that, I had great disdain for Dice Clay. Now, a lot of people love Dice Clay because they were like, it's an act, it's a character. I'm like, yeah, but anybody can do it, and these people exist. But most people who are like in theater or acting really liked it because they're like, no, but he's just in character and he's doing a character. You have to appreciate that. But as a joke writing perspective, I can't. So, but people would not understand that. They're just like, why? I'm like, it's bad for just too many reasons. It ruins comedy. It brings it down to a lower level. They're like, oh, you're just jealous of his success. I'm like, okay. I mean, there's nothing I can say to you to make you understand because we're talking from two different worlds. I write jokes. That's easy. That stuff what he's doing is easy. I hear that every day when I walk into a locker room. You know what I'm saying? I do hear most guys talk. It's what he's saying is disturbing to me. There's nothing funny about it. But they're like, oh, you're jealous. He's a character, man. I
just sort of, even if I don't follow them or listen to them regularly or whatever, I think what it boils down to for me is I really respect comedians who just speak authentically. And what I mean by that is not like Bernie authenticity, but they speak authentically in their own voice. I think I respect more of that. There are some people who are sort of characters, but even that is sort of their voice, like Chappelle and Chris Rock and Burr and Norm Macdonald. They are really speaking in their own voice. But then you got even people like Seinfeld, who he has a style, not a shtick, but he has a style. But that's his voice. And then you see other comedians where, God, that joke was good, that one was funny, but you're sort of like, who is this person? And then you have your drink, your 3 drinks, and you leave, and you go. And what's lacking there is not them not being funny, but maybe sort of that authenticity of voice. It's like, who was that? That was a collection of funny jokes. And I think that's what resonates with me. Like even your Indian accent joke, like that I was thinking about that, and I said something along the lines of, the audience being racist. So I sort of like, I was like, why is that amusing to me? For me, I would sort of like the meta analysis of that, right? Like sort of like you do the Indian voice, and then you hear the little snickers, some people laughing, some people you're like, well, some of you are uncomfortable. And the reason for that is quite simple, because that small group is racist, and then you sort of do the joke, but then you sort of comment on their reactions. And to me, the joke immediately becomes not offensive, because the whole sort of setup of the joke is you're commenting on their reaction of you doing an Indian accent, and you sort of take it back, right? And then you do some riffs on that. But I just like Dennis Miller, someone I don't listen to, right? And he's conservative, he uses big words, but he speaks in his unique voice. And so I respect him for being Dennis Miller.
The problem is I would love to deconstruct that joke on stage, like you said, but you got to make sure that as you deconstruct or do the other things like you said, like crowd work, it better be as funny as the joke. You better not lose your So as a comic, you're constantly thinking, I don't want to lose them. So you're sort of second guessing the direction of where you want to go. So that's why a lot of guys just like going up there with their tight set. That I like what you say. I like rawness. I like things happening in the moment. I like things happening on stage. I like this. Because like I said, if I would say one thing about this, what we do is I wish we would do more like joke on top, take a topic and then we try to just rip into it, be funny, and you just try to layer on top, joke after joke after joke until we're spent. Like, okay, we've crushed that thing. We just gotta leave it alone now. So that's the part I enjoy. So I'm with you. I like rawness. I like more unpredictability, but audiences don't. Audiences really, really, like, you're different. Most people like joke. I'm here for laughter. I pay my money. I leave. They're not the ones that go. The ones who really know comedy will figure out where to go to find that. they'll either follow a certain comedian, they'll go to a certain club. The ones that, there's definitely levels of comedy connoisseurs. So that audience is a rarity, and when you're in front of them, it's amazing. And if you can get them to follow you, it's even more amazing. I mean, and there's Mark Maron, he developed this audience that's going to listen to his crazy rants and his anger. They enjoy his horrible angst where he talks probably for 10 minutes and he's not even funny. And then he gets a punchline. You know what I'm saying? And then a punchline comes out, and then a bit comes out, and then he's horrible for another 5 minutes. It's amazing their patience. They'll just sit there and listen to him, Most club owners joke to the joke. You're paid by the second you can get a joke out of your mouth. So, and the comics will say you need 5 punchlines per minute. I mean, there's all these different crazy rules of comedy. And for me, it's like, I don't know. I just have different styles. But I'm like you. The more authentic, the better. And there's just so few comics that I'm like, that's probably 80% of who he is. That's probably like Louis C.K. That feels like 95%, man. I feel like he's giving it, like the 5% is just going to get him in jail or something. You know what I'm saying? Because he tries to give you
as we know, right? The parts he left out were,
But he really, if you go all over his material, he does a lot of stupid shit that's just not necessary, that he just does for himself on stage. Like he does it just to screw with the audience. Right. Like, I just did this to screw with you. I just did that to say that to see how you guys would react. I'm like, wow, that's crazy. And you get a lot of guys who also do it, but they're not as talented. So you're always getting like copycats, guys that make you cringe because they're trying to be somebody else and not being authentic. Where, like I said,
Bill Hicks and stuff,
Yeah, they're trying to be, a lot of comics try to be Bill Hicks or idolize him, and then they're on stage trying to be Bill Hicks. It's like, you got to be authentic to who you are. Be honest about who you are. Tell us who you are.
Because it translates. I mean, not to get back to Bernie, but it translates regardless of your gender or your age, right? Gray hair. You got young people who are like, because it didn't matter. You just were like, I'm digging what you're selling here, right? I'm digging your authenticity. Because on paper, it makes no sense, right? It makes no sense. Who is this Sanders guy, this little Vermont person, and he's old as F. So when you get that X factor of authenticity, it resonates. And so, and I think all the comedians we mentioned have that, and they can sort of breathe in between lines, and there's this mojo going on that it's almost exhausting to go to someone else and you're just being pummeled in the face and you're like, what is this? It was good. It was funny. But then you're done. Right. So,
and you can tell how different they are, because when they do, to me, the really good comedians, and that's why I conclude Robin Williams, and we've talked about this before, are the really good comedians are the guys that when they're just riffing, or if they caught off guard and they go somewhere and they're still, oh my God, so funny, you're like, oh my God, this guy is just legit, just always funny. He can't even control himself. And it's usually the guy, for me, like I said, like a Norm or a Bill Burr, who's just, the stuff, it just comes out of them. They almost like they can't control it. They've tapped in to this door where they're not going to filter what they have to say. It's just going to come out their mouths, and people just love it, because that door must be a very similar door that other people just hold shut. It's just like every day they got to shut that door before I leave the house so I can act like a normal human, and they can basically walk around for the most part and just talk the way they want to talk. So,
well, we should end. Well, actually, we have to end here. It's coming up to the 4-hour Facebook limit.
But now you're gonna make me freak out about that joke and all the voices that I can do, and now I have to go and worry about that, and I won't sleep.
Mission accomplished.
So if you don't want to know what I'm going to worry about besides my haircut, is I shouldn't be doing voices like that. But it's hard because I can only do like certain voices, and I'm always like, oh man, like I know that's funny, and you're just like, oh man, I know, I gotta crunch, I gotta go and write better jokes. I always feel like I gotta go write better jokes, longer jokes. So now I'll try to go do that, but I'll be worrying all along about everything.
I'm so happy that I've created some sense of angst inside you. That's like just a freebie.
But it was good to talk about comedy because that's one of what brings me hope is, like I said, because I'm very not on the line of hope, is comedy. Like if I can laugh and if I can go find somewhere where I truly can laugh and get away for a second, that's why I like comedy so much, is because I'm completely. I believe I'm more aware than I've ever been about how bad things are and how desperate things are. And I don't know how it's going to change. So again, my only skill is to try to make people laugh, and maybe I have to do a better, cleaner job of that. But it's always been a struggle because you still want to talk. You don't want to be a phony. I don't want to be a phony, so it's hard. It's a real dilemma. But yeah, comedy is the key, man, to surviving this. And you want to go back. That's why, just to end the broadcast again, like The Daily Show, Colbert, Bill Maher, none of them, for whatever reason, speak to me anymore. Like, I'm not getting, and I've talked about this over and over again, I get no recharge from anywhere. So why do I get pumped up to do this? Because when I watch stuff, I see stuff, I'm like, oh, I got to go talk to Curtis about this. We need to straighten this out because they mishandled this, and we need people to sort of understand. And then people are like, why you do that show? Nobody's watching. Well, you got to start somewhere. You got to grind it, man. It's just like stand-up. Stand-up is like you start here, and you go here, and you go here, and you go here, and it's painful. It's good to have somebody across the way.
I'm doing this only out of enjoyment. If you chase something, it's not going to be fun. Because
right.
you're doing it for some wrong reason. This, I mean this sincerely.
But that's the way I feel too.
I don't care if anyone watched. I mean, it would be good if someone watched it and they got something out of it. I welcome that. But I'm doing it because I enjoy it, plain and simple. But we only have literally 2 minutes left, and this broadcast will
wrap it up
automatically end at 4. It just shuts down. I'm just going to play off. I'm not going to come back. I'm going to play a little bit of that Swedish student. Even though you're anti-Swedish, and I'll let it run out with the
my first girlfriend was
we have
Swedish.
left. So thank you everybody for participating. Go do a comedy set. Come back and give us an update. That's a fun journey to see how each one progresses and what new things you learn from each.
I will try, but that'll be later on this week, 2 weeks, couple weeks from now. I don't know when I can get back on stage. But yeah, thanks to everybody that didn't tune in. Thanks, Curtis. It was fun. This is fun. We do this for fun. And I'm going to have to say that to everybody because eventually people are going to start seeing this and like, why do you do that? Nobody's watching you. It's just stupid. You're such an idiot. You're making such a fool of yourself. It's fun, man. It's what I look for. Like, there's sadly nothing else in my life besides my dog over there who laid out like she's like at a cruise. Oh man, I woke her up. She was all like, yeah, I'm cruising out. So this is the only thing that like I look forward to. I don't have sports. I don't have gambling. Nothing. This is Curtis and the live stream and trying to make this work and make it funny. That's what gets me all jacked up. So I don't know, man. I don't know what to say about that. But like you said, it's fun.
Thank you, everybody. We have literally 5 seconds left. Enjoy. Ciao. And we'll see you next time. Do something positive.